scheduled meeting of July 21st, 2022. This time I'd like to ask everyone to either turn off or silence your cell phone. Right on cue. My name is Elizabeth.
That was not planned. Please make sure.
Oh, I shouldn't have looked back. My name's Elizabeth Waits, and I'll be presenting cases today on behalf of the Codes Department. So matters that are on public hearing today will be presented with maps, photos, and the site plans that have been submitted for these projects. The information that I present, as well as the applications, recommendations from any other government offices, and letters that we've received from members of the public in support or opposition to the request that have been provided to the board in advance of the meeting and will be recorded as a part of today's proceedings. I have just a couple of preliminary announcements about matters that are on our docket. Case number 88 has been deferred. That was on a prior version of the docket, so if you're looking at that, case 88 was deferred, 89 and 94 were withdrawn. The first item that is on your docket today, case number 53, that matter is going to be deferred to September 1st. And then we have one item that we would like to ask the board to consider on the consent agenda today. That would be case 2022-90. In preparation for today's meeting, the board staff has recommended a consent agenda, and the board chair has reviewed the record of each case for recommendation for adoption on the consent agenda. If the chair agrees with the staff that an item meets the legal criteria for that type of application, the case is recommended to the full board for approval. I would now like to read the caption for case 2022-90. That was a request for a variance from the street setback requirements to construct a single-family home at 313 Douglas Avenue in the RS5 zoning district. The setback per code is 40 feet, and the applicant is seeking to construct a home at a 20-foot setback. Is there anybody here in opposition to case 2022-90? Madam Vice Chair, I don't see anyone here in opposition, so if I may ask for a member of the board to recommend that item for adoption on consent.
Okay, sure. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Okay, a second. A second. Okay, we have a motion, a second. Any discussion? Okay, all in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, that passes 5-0. 5-0, yep.
That was case 90.
Christine, you're supposed to be good.
Okay, so if the applicant is here for case 2022-90, you're free to go now. Our staff will email you a copy of the order from today's proceedings once it's been finalized, and then you should proceed with your building permit and make sure that it's finalized within 2 years from the date of the order. Before we begin calling individual cases, I'm going to call up any council members that might wish to be heard. I did see Councilmember Benedict, so if you'd like to come forward at this time, or do you prefer to wait until that matter is being heard? And then, of course, it's always a little hard here because I'm trying to microphone, and I don't see any other council members here today. I think we have one other preliminary matter before we get started. Attorney Emily Lamb is here and would like to ask for the board's consideration on one item regarding a procedural matter, I believe.
Good afternoon, board members. Emily Lamb. I'm here on behalf of the appellants for cases 2022-091 and 2022-092. These are both similar cases. They're both sidewalk variance requests with some similar issues to consider. The 2022-092 is a little bit more complicated and merits, I think, a little bit more in-depth explanation that I think would be beneficial for you to hear before you hear case 91. So we're just asking to switch those two and hear them in reverse order so that we hear you hear case 92 first and then case 91.
Okay,
Thank you.
that's acceptable.
You're the chair. You set the agenda.
Okay, so for the remaining items on today's agenda, we'll go ahead and start calling through the public hearing docket. For contested matters, applicants will have 10 minutes to make their presentation to the board. That time will include any testimony that you wish to present, as well as any testimony from other individuals who are in support of your application. After the applicant has had an opportunity to make their presentation, any parties who are present in opposition may also have 10 minutes jointly to make a presentation, and if the applicant wishes to reserve any of their 10 minutes, then they may do so in order to make rebuttal after the opposition has presented. In the event that you don't have any other members of the public present in opposition to your case, then you will just have 5 minutes to make your presentation, as there will be no opposition afterward. And then at the close of each public hearing, the board will discuss the case and take a vote. The Metro Code requires 4 votes to grant or deny an application. If a motion fails to receive 4 concurring votes, the matter will appear on the next docket for consideration by any members who are unavailable. Once a vote is taken on your application, a party who disagrees with the outcome may request a rehearing within 60 days. Parties may also appeal the decision to the Davidson County Chancery Court by filing a writ of certiorari within 60 days. All parties are encouraged to seek independent legal counsel before filing an appeal to ensure that all deadlines and procedures are followed. For any applications granted today, you will have 2 years to complete your building permit for which you have applied. We have the microphone on the public hearing table already on for you, so this will be the table that you'll come to speak to the board whenever your case is called up to make your presentation. The first case for public hearing today is case 2022-77. This is a request for a special exception for a licensed daycare for up to 12 children at 2620 Walker Lane in the RS20 zoning district. There are a number of factors the board must consider to grant the application, and we'll go over those here today during the presentation. And the planning department has recommended approval with the conditions that are set forth and will be discussed. Here's a pictorial image of the zoning map, the aerial photo of this neighborhood, a photo of the home from the street, some panoramic photos of the street. This is an image with the recommendations that were provided by planning. Conditions of approval: the daycare home may only be permitted in the existing structure, and if an outdoor fenced play area is provided, the fence should be opaque. Here are the factors for which you all should consider. This is a new ordinance that went into effect in late May, and so I went ahead and just set forth these factors for you, since this was the first time that the board has heard a case under the new daycare ordinance. So you would want to make sure that, of course, there are between 8 and 12 individuals per the applicant's either proof or testimony today, that the residence must be occupied, the minimum lot area must be met for that particular zoning district, no more than one daycare on the street, has to be more than 100 feet from the terminus of any street. If there's an outdoor play area, then it has to be fenced and attached to the home in order to minimize the noise impact. And the board would also want to request that all requirements for state licensing are being met. This is an excerpt from the application which verifies that the daycare home is intended for no more than 12 children. And then I've placed a GIS data map that shows that the lot in question does meet the minimum square footage per the factors that the board would consider. This is a photo showing that it's an aerial, it's arterial and Collector Street, which has to do with one of these factors. So basically under that type of street, you can't have more, I think it's more than one per 100 feet, which also is shown in the map. You can see how both of the properties on either side, one's 100 feet of frontage and the other one's 75 feet of frontage, and there's not a street in between any of that. So the more than 100 feet on either side is met for the lot. And then this is the site plan that was submitted by the applicant. Is there anybody here today in opposition to this case 2022-77? Okay, we do have some opposition present, Vice Chair. So if the applicant would come forward at this time, the applicant, so if you would wait until after the applicant has made their presentation, I believe you were wanting to be heard perhaps in opposition to the case. Okay, so yes, if the applicant would come forward, and then I don't know if you have anyone else here with you, but you and or your other parties in support would have 10 minutes to make your presentation, and if you wish to use less than that time, then you can always come back and respond to any statements that are made by any other parties. Yes, please. Please state your name and address for the board.
Trixie Williams, address 2620 Walker Lane.
Okay, go ahead and start telling us about your daycare and
Well, I was currently a daycare provider, opened up in 2004, closed in 2018. I was licensed for the same child care that I'm trying to reopen. And the daycare went pretty good, no complaints. I had no problems, traffic. I followed all DHS rules and the licensing rules to be approved. Really, I just want to open up the daycare to care for the kids again. That's just my passion. And my husband is, he's getting old, and I have a disabled son, and that's something that I need to do, provide income for our family as well. So pretty much, I really just, that's all I really have to say, that, I'm not new to this game, 14 years is a long time for child care, and never had any complaints with anything, especially, my neighbors. My neighbor was going to come, but she had surgery today, so she wasn't able to make it since the short notice of coming back here. And we had a community meeting, and some people had concerns, and some people didn't. People was on my street. He was in the meeting. They never knew that I had a daycare within the neighborhood. And they never knew that I closed. It's just how calm the business was, because I do respect my community as far as having a business in the community. And pretty much that's all I really can say.
Okay, so we'd like to ask you a couple of questions about some of the points that were on the screen earlier. One was that, will you have more than 12 individuals?
I'm not licensed for no more than 12 children, which is called a group home, group daycare. So that's the only thing I will be licensed for.
Okay. And there was a note about meeting all the requirements of the state.
Oh, yes, I am. With the fence and all that, with the codes, I'm able to I can meet all the requirements, because I know what needs to be done to have a safe, daycare. And the state, I'm going through them to get licensed, but this is just one of the processes that has to be done.
And can you tell us more about the fence?
Well, the fence is going to be, my husband here is going to, it's going to be attached to the building as it was before.
Okay.
And I think they're requesting a 4-foot.
No, 5 foot.
5-foot fence that, my husband's in construction, so that's going to be done.
Okay, and will it be an opaque fence or
Chain link.
chain link? Okay. Let's see.
The reason we hadn't put it up, I was getting ready to put it up till we
came
had to come
to
to the
this.
meeting, so we don't know whether we're gonna get approved or not. And the fence can be sort of expensive.
And I don't believe we got your name.
Douglas Williams.
Okay, and same address?
Oh, yeah, same address.
And you occupy this residence currently?
Yes.
And will occupy it during the time you run the daycare? Okay.
We occupy the upstairs, and the daycare is in the basement.
Okay. Any other questions?
So you say you operated the daycare at this location for 14 years previously, at the
Yes.
same location?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Does anyone else have questions before we call the opposition?
Would you be okay with doing a solid fence rather than a chain link fence, if that's one of the conditions?
Yes.
Okay.
What is a solid fence? I don't know.
One that you can't see through, like either,
Yes.
Has to be,
yeah.
You gotta be able to see through it.
you have to be, it said opaque.
Oh, opaque means solid.
Oh, my bad.
Yeah. Opaque means, that was one of the conditions noted as.
To keep 'em
yeah,
quiet.
Yeah. So it's got to be a solid fence.
Look at Tom and I thinking it had to be see-through.
What that is?
But
Yeah, no, I had to throw you in there.
yes, and I don't want this to eat up any of the applicant's time, but there were a few factors under the board rules that I failed to go over that must also be required. This is under Rule 9. So these are some things that the board would want to also verify. There cannot be any signs on the property advertising the daycare. The hours of operation must be limited to 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. There cannot be any dogs on the premises, and there cannot be a pool.
Okay, so if we can address these one by one, we'll go through them. We talked about the fence, play area, and will there be any signs on the property?
Well, yeah, all those rules is pretty much from when I was open before, so I'm aware of
No,
what,
there's no signs on the
no signs gonna be.
The hours of operation, can you tell us what those will be?
But my hours of operations plan on being from 7 to 5:30.
And any dogs on the premises?
No pets.
Okay. And swimming pools?
No swimming
Spas?
pool.
Okay. Okay, any further questions? Do you have anything else to say before the opposition comes up? You will have time after the opposition comes
Okay.
up.
No, I don't.
Okay.
Can I ask just one quick question? Where will the children that use the facility, I assume they'll drive up the driveway, drop them off, and then head on out?
Yes,
Okay,
they pull to the back.
thank you.
Okay, so if you'll return to your seats and we'll call up the opposition and then you can come back.
Okay, thank you.
Parties in opposition may come forward. Yes, ma'am. Please state your name and address when you get started.
My name is Ruth Murray. My address is
I'm so sorry. May you please speak into the microphone, and that way it'll be,
I thought my voice was that.
oh, thank you.
My name is Ruth Murray, 3332 William Bailey Drive, Nashville, Tennessee. I am not opposed to a daycare. My niece has two. What I'm having problems with is that you have the driveway, and then all of a sudden you have all of this this area. No one lives there. I was willed 1 acre of the property that's there, and I've been trying to sell that property for some time. So I'm not opposed to a daycare. I just want to make sure that if something happens to a child in that area, then what are my responsibilities and how do we clear that up? What do we do differently?
So is your property an adjacent property?
No, it's next to the driveway,
Next to the driveway, but it's not, it's a different property though, right?
different property. It's
Okay.
called Ruth Street.
Okay, gotcha.
And is your concern that the children will leave the fenced area and get hurt?
That has happened so many times in Nashville, Tennessee, where children wander off, and some of them we've been able to catch or find, and others, 8 years later, we still don't know what happened to those children. So that's my opposition, that how do we manage and how do we make sure that these children are safe from that area, not from where her residence is?
So the aerial view, would we be able to see this area? So on the screen, is it the area that's above the red, it's a red icon? Is it that area?
share this with you. This is the area right here. It's a wooded area. I think the last time I was there were 2 houses. So I have like the first area, then there was a house, and then maybe 2 more areas, and there was another house. So I'm not sure that there are a lot of people that live there, but this area has grown up, and we would have to definitely be careful with where kids are located at all times.
Okay. Do you have any other questions or items you want to bring to our attention?
That's the big area, right? That's the big situation right there. What happens if a child is lost or something happens to them in that wooded area and it belongs to someone else?
Well, we'll have to bring the appellant up and we'll talk to them about that area.
Okay.
So if you don't have anything further, or if the board has any questions?
That was the big issue.
Advisory opinions. You might want to, but I'm not.
Okay, I don't think there are any questions from the board, so we'll call the appellant back up.
Okay, thank you.
And just to be sure, did you want to respond to anything that was said? Yes, ma'am, please, if you would come back up to the microphone.
I was trying to see the area that she was speaking of. Is it the wooded area?
That's what it looked like, that wooded area.
I can't see that part. So where is my house at?
That red.
Oh,
Red dot.
so it's right next to it?
It's right next to us.
Well, with that, I've never had a problem with that. You know, when the kids are picked up and dropped off, they are, you know, handed off to me through the door. And when we're going out to play, the fence is, as soon as we step out the door, that's where the playground is, and the fence, and it has locks, so they're not able to get out that fence, because when we step out the daycare, you're automatically stepping into the playground, which is secured by the gate that needs to be put up.
Okay.
Much that's it.
Okay. Is there any further questions, or would you like to add anything? Okay, we will close the public hearing.
Let me ask one quick question, if I
Keep it
can,
open.
pretty close.
Sure.
How many employees do you anticipate having?
Well, I've always had 2 other caregivers, and you know, we go by child ratio. So the whole year the time I've been there, I've never worked alone. I've always had someone there with me, two employees. So you know, that's just part of the business, me be able to take care of the kids. I always try to have help.
Thank you, ma'am.
Okay, anything, other questions? Okay, we'll close the public hearing then. You can return to your seat.
Thank you.
Any discussion?
I guess this would just be a question for codes, just to verify that the new legislation that says, is that 12 children max, and then the caregivers be on top of that, or is there like a?
It's children. Max.
Children,
Does not
okay.
include the
All
employees.
right.
Yeah, I'll just, I am sympathetic to and appreciative of the opposition's concerns, and think that we all should be worried about, as a sometimes tort lawyer, that we should always be worried about the condition of our property. However, I think that the conditions that the state and Metro have supplied appear to me to be the best practices, and I frankly don't see the opposition as a basis for opposing the applicant's request.
A motion?
Is that a motion?
Is that a motion? Yeah.
Felt like it.
I don't think I've done a motion on a special exception, so I don't know if we need to do something. maybe somebody else.
I can give it a shot.
Somebody else can take a crack at that.
Okay. Yes, you guys want to say, Mr. Cole?
So with that special exception, are we going to list all 6 of those?
Well, the planning department, they recommended approval. They listed 2 specific, because the items that were provided are required by codes. They're not, I mean, it's in the code book. It's not, it's not on us. But planning did recommend 2 conditions of approval in their analysis. So I'll make a motion that we approve the special exception as requested with the conditions that the large use may only be permitted in the existing structure, and that that the outdoor fenced play area is provided with an opaque fence.
Okay, any seconds?
I'll second it.
Okay, discussion on the motion? This might be overkill, but I'd like to add that any gates in the fence be locked.
Or, yeah, okay, that's fine with me.
That's overkill.
I don't think that's
I don't think that's overkill.
Well, I'm not sure if that's
Or be
already
able
in
to
the
be
rules.
locked, yeah.
Yeah, but let's go ahead and, I think it's probably smart that we emphasize that particular part.
Okay, yeah, especially considering the opposition that is
But yeah, I was
voiced.
going to say that, especially in light of
Yeah.
the opposition.
I'm good with that.
Is there any concern that may conflict with some type of
That's what I was thinking, like fire
code or egress
fire
or
code.
something
Yeah,
bad?
I would
fire
say-
happens in the yard?
I would propose we change it to, lockable.
Yeah, there's a way you can lock it and also
Yeah.
allow egress.
Yeah.
That's fine with me.
Whatever that type of lockable emergency exit type.
I've had to do it on a daycare before, so.
Okay, yeah.
So it's possible. Yeah. Okay, so we have a motion and there was a second, and we had discussion. So any further discussion?
You need to update your motion?
I approve the amendment, I said the amendment was acceptable to my motion. So,
Okay, so all in favor, say aye, raise your hand. Okay, any opposed? Seeing none, so that passes 6-0. I got my math right this time.
Pardon me, that case has been approved. You all are free to go if you wish, and then you'll circle back with the codes department to complete your permitting application. Yes, ma'am, thank you. The next item on our docket is case 2022-79. This is a request for permission to pay into the pedestrian contribution fund in lieu of building sidewalks along Hydes Ferry and Ashland City Highway for a corner lot located at 3910 Hydes Ferry Road in the RS-15 zoning district. Planning Department recommends disapproval as requested, but approval of the in lieu contribution along Hydes Ferry with the sidewalk to be constructed along Ashland City Highway. That recommendation has been approved by the Codes Department, and the applicant has appealed this decision by way of a variance application. Here's a zoning map of the parcel at the corner of Hydes Ferry and Ashland City, RS-15. Aerial view. Here's some street views, different angles of that parcel. And then the street, that's like looking, I think, maybe west on Hydes Ferry. I included a contour, elevation, and slope map. I think that I think the applicant may have referenced some issues along those lines in their application. Here is that's the site plan. Yep. Is there anybody here in opposition to this case? Okay, seeing none. Is the applicant present? Okay, you may come forward, and if you'd please state your name and address. You'll have 5 minutes.
Okay, cool. Hi, everybody. My name is Josh McDonald. I've actually been to the BZA on this exact same property before. There's nothing planned, but they were just in. What's happening here, my builder contractor was supposed to show up, but, is what it is. And effectively, so we got the setback variance. That was check one. Then we went back and we figured out, we learned we could pay in lieu on the Hydes Ferry side, but they wanted the Ashland City sidewalks constructed, which, well, to my understanding, the Ashland City sidewalks, the way it works is there's kind of a bit of a drop-off, and constructing those with the way the house was planned to front Hydes Ferry and effectively its backyard backs up to Ashland City, that this really wasn't like the most ideal situation. You also have to go through grading permit and et cetera, when the majority of things around there happen to be in the RS, and most of those homes, as they're developed, they're going to end up paying in lieu anyway. So from my perspective in particular, and I personally own this, I saw on the docket it said some other LLC owned it, but it's transferred to me, so it's basically just me. That's basically what you're trying to ask for is, still willing to pay in lieu and not construct the sidewalks on Ashland City, since the next nearest sidewalks are darn near by Clarksville Pike, and it just, from a practical feasibility, realistic standpoint, I don't think this is an unreasonable ask here.
Okay, any questions? And I don't recall, did we ask if there was opposition?
Oh, I'm sorry. I did call for any opposition. I didn't see this lady here at the time, but I think.
I'm sorry.
Oh, that's okay. I see. Okay. So in that case, he would have had 10 minutes if he wishes to continue making his presentation or reserve some time, and then we can hear from.
I guess there's time left if I have to come back and address something.
Okay, and I heard your name, but I didn't hear you state your address.
Yeah, so Josh McDonald, 3276 Hinkle Drive. It's about 3 minutes around the way off of County Hospital Road from over here.
Okay, and if you can hold on for a second, was there any questions for the applicant?
Yeah, just to confirm, you said the Hydes Ferry side is the orientation where the front of the house is going to face?
Yeah.
And the back is going to be, so it'll be the backyard back.
Bingo. And we were going to fence that in to begin with. So, and then the issue is, it's because there is, and you can tell looking at the topo on the site plan, there is it's an interesting grade change coming from how high the sidewalk's got to be built up on Ashland, sloping down to the lot. Because it's almost like a little valley in there almost. But yeah, so since the house is effectively going to front Hydes Ferry, their backyard, for all intents and purposes, is Ashland City Road.
Okay, that's all. Thanks.
Any other questions? Okay. Well, if you'll return to your seat, we'll call up the opposition.
I think we may have at least 2 people here, and if anyone else would wish to speak at this time, please let us know. You all jointly will have 10 minutes, so just be mindful of that as you make your presentation, that you'll share the 10 minutes together. Yes, ma'am, if you'd please state your name and address for the record when you get started.
Yes, I've been here. My name is Dolores Donegan, and I live at 1631 Emerald Drive. And as before, I've been concerned about the water runoff right in that little valley. I'm not opposed to not having a sidewalk, but what is going to be done to prevent that water from floating down in that street on John Millett? That's my concern for that property.
Okay, so your primary concern then is the stormwater runoff from the project in general? Okay.
It's a pretty steep drop, isn't it?
Do we have any other questions? I had one. Do you often see people walking down Ashland City Highway?
Oh, yeah.
They do? Okay.
And see, right there in that little valley right there, I mentioned before, there's a lot of water that gets right in there, and it develops into ice during the winter months. We don't have sidewalks. Sidewalks don't have nowhere to go. So I just want to know what is going to prevent that water from settling down in that lower part.
I think we had another, someone else in opposition. If you'd like to come up, you may.
And it's not an opposition, it's a concern that maybe nobody's thought about. And as I said before, there are no sidewalks out there. The sidewalks don't have nowhere to go, so you're just only building a small amount. But I am concerned about that water, because, see, I drive down through there.
Right.
Okay.
No, we understand. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay. We'll allow the next person to come forward and speak.
I did not
That's
come.
your name
My
and
name is
address.
Peggy Brown. I live at 1610 Emerald Drive. I did not come to speak. I just wanted, my concern was about sidewalks in terms of safety issues. And I know in the past we don't have sidewalks in certain areas, and that's just the way it is. But as beginning in this time forward, if we need a sidewalk for safety, then we do have pedestrians that need that safety. And I'm just saying, if we need it, then provide it.
Okay, thank you. Okay, I assume there were no questions. Okay, we will call the appellant up again.
All right, so yeah, I can speak to the stormwater issue. Yeah, we got to do bioretention there. There's no way around that. So under stormwater permit to get that pool, we got to put in a bioretention pond that actually is better than what is currently there, because now that excess water, regardless from whatever runoff is from the relatively small house that will be built, that'll end up capturing that and making that a better situation. So there shouldn't be any concern or risk of flooding off of Hyde's Ferry, which turns into John Millette. So I can address that. As far as everything else, yeah, basically for what I said previously, on the situation, it's a very interesting, it's a very odd shaped property. Like, again, this is the second time coming to BZA on it. Literally just trying to get one just ordinary 2-story house on there. Like, this is nothing complicated. This is not a great big development. Like, it's been easier times with, like, it seems like the smaller stuff seems to be harder than the bigger stuff a lot of times. So, that's basically what, I'm trying to do here. And that's basically it. I'll end up living right down the street for another case that we got on the docket coming up. But, that's pretty much all I have there. And yeah, that's pretty much it. I'm happy to answer any other questions or hear other concerns before getting up.
I think you mentioned that you're saying if you did have to do a sidewalk, you have to get a grading permit. Would that require some additional stormwater infrastructure with that?
Well, that's a good question. It's just basically going through the formality. So because, and again, I'm not the best person to speak to it because the builder or no one here is basically here. But to my understanding, getting the grading permit to construct the sidewalk, what else is going to have to go in? I mean, literally nothing. We're going to have to probably end up it's going to be very hard, basically super difficult to construct, because it's like you're constructing the sidewalk on, this basically grade. So how does this work? And then, it's just a whole extra hullabaloo of stuff that is honestly avoidable, and to be quite frank, for, just one house on an interesting corner.
Okay, any further questions? Okay, we'll close the public hearing then.
Cool, thanks.
Discussion?
was just going to say that I appreciate the opposition coming out. As someone who got stuck in traffic getting here, I appreciate the women who live close by actually getting here and actually sharing their concerns, because I think they were valid, and we appreciate you all participating in the process. So I definitely wanted to thank them. And I actually remember this first case on BZA, and I remember that this house was kind of at a weird intersection, and it was wooded, and it, I think I could actually go both ways. I was just interested in the wisdom of my colleagues about whether there's a case for a variance, because we rarely say no build unless there's some really, or no build and pay in unless there's some exceptional circumstances. So I was interested in what everyone else had to say.
You guys are the architects.
Yeah, that's why I'm looking at the architects.
Now I know why Joseph sits over there all the time.
I still look at him.
Well, he's right across from us.
Well, in alignment with Mrs. Davis, I appreciate the opposition sharing their point. It's often assumed that certain neighborhoods don't have sidewalks, and that's just the way it is. I think we have to kind of look at that lens of what does Nashville look like now, but also in the future, especially on a very busy street like Ashland City Highway. I mean, people fly up and down that street, right? So I think we need to, take that into consideration.
I wouldn't walk on the street.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
I'm sorry, go ahead.
yeah, well, what do you think is what would you propose is the?
Leaning towards disapproval at this point.
Yeah, I'm with you. Because to me, and I don't, it's a little odd to me that the recommendation has been to construct on Ashland City, but not on Hydes Ferry, when from just looking at the map, it looks like Hydes Ferry is the street that actually connects back into the neighborhood. So, if the goal is to expand sidewalk infrastructure, which I think it is, it would make sense to me that it just wrap around. That if the construction is going to have to happen on Ashland City Highway, then why not bend it around along Hydes Ferry so that at some point it can be connected into the.
I do see a lot of less grade issues, looks like, going on that Hydes Ferry side. So I know the planning recommended one versus the other, but it doesn't make sense to say build them on Hydes Ferry and pay in lieu on. I do see a case. I mean, that's a lot of slope along Ashland City Highway there. I mean, that would require some pretty significant, like as you mentioned, regrading, and could have some. And that regrading could have some negative impacts as far as some of the stormwater concerns. So
yeah.
I do see a case there. I do see some kind of a hardship. But I question, like as you mentioned, why not build them on Hydes Ferry? It does seem much more, the grading seems to be much less of an issue on that, and it does connect to the neighborhood, like you said.
Yeah. And I agree, like where are the walkers coming from, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, and I think that's why I'm sort of a build it all. I mean, I get like if planning is saying that we should build it on Ashland City, then I'm kind of inclined to just have it all get wrapped around. So, because I don't want to. I'm sure the studies if there's studies that indicate and suggest that it should be on Ashland City, then I don't see a reason to doubt that.
What was that, Member Wallace?
I was just simply saying, are we building a bridge to nowhere on, if nobody else along the,
nowhere.
A sidewalk to nowhere, but.
I may counter that. I think you got quite a few walkers on this street, and they're just walking in an unsafe manner, so.
You're walking on Ashland City Highway,
yeah.
You're taking your life in your own hands.
Yeah.
I mean, that's scary.
Yeah.
Well, I could go both ways as well. So,
You have a motion?
Pretty good.
Yeah, I move that we deny the variance as requested due to an insufficient showing of a hardship.
financial
Okay,
hardship.
are there any seconds to the motion?
Even though I'm the one that criticized it, I'll second the motion to move it along.
Okay, so we will have discussion on the motion now.
So would that mean that sidewalks have to be built on both sides?
Yeah.
That was my question, whether does disapproval require that sidewalks be constructed on both frontages?
Yeah, the default, this was an appeal from the Sidewalk Waiver Committee, so the Sidewalk Waivers Committee's action will stand.
But theirs was also build on Ashland and pay in lieu on Heights Ferry, is that correct?
If I recall, I believe it was, yes.
Can we ask the applicant if because if we think that the sidewalks on Heights Ferry are more of a issue, or maybe I guess that the traffic is the issue though on Ashland City. Okay, so if we deny the variance, then it would default to build on Ashland City and pay in lieu on Heights Ferry, okay.
So do we want to vote on that motion and see what happens? Or have further discussion? Okay, well, let's vote on this one. So we had the motion and the second, and all in favor of the motion, say aye. Okay, we've got 4, all opposed, 2. So that passes 4-2.
Got a little shocked on that.
Okay, the next case on the docket today is a case that was actually on public hearing at the previous meeting. I don't plan on going through this slide deck unless the board asks me to, but I'm just going to go through the caption and then remind you all of the factors as well as the planning and NDOT recommendations, and then submit to you all for your deliberation. Case 2022-82 is a request for a special exception from the height and setback requirements for an adaptive residential development within the UZO for property located at 1218, 1224, and 1236 Dickerson Pike, 5 Ligon Avenue, and 1055 Whites Creek Pike in the CS zoning district. The street setback requirement for each parcel is 15 feet, and the applicant is requesting to eliminate the setback. The height at the setback line is 30 feet along street frontage, and the applicant is seeking a height exception of 80 along Dickerson, 132 feet along Auction Way, and 147 feet along Whites Creek Pike. In order to approve the height exception, the board must find that the proposed building height does not create an adverse impact on air, light, shadow, or wind velocity patterns relative to existing structures, or create those obstructions to approved but not yet built structures, and that the proposed building height contributes to and does not detract from a strong pedestrian-friendly streetscape. In order to approve the setback exception that's requested, the applicant has a burden to show that the proposed development doesn't create an adverse impact on adjacent properties, nor detract from a pedestrian-friendly street environment. The planning department recommended approval of the application with the following conditions. Provide sidewalks per the major and collector street plan along Dickerson and Whites Creek. Provide sidewalks and a grass strip along Auction Way and Ligon per the local street standard. Approved heights would be to the highest point on the roof, including any obstructions, and any unlined parking structures visible from public streets would be screened with architectural cladding, including Building 3 that's on the site plan, where visible from Ligon. Of course, these conditions would need to be approved by the board if incorporated into the order. NDOT has recommended approval as well with the following conditions. Final placement of buildings, roadways, and driveways shall be coordinated prior to construction, and site distance exhibits may be required. As I've indicated, the public hearing is closed at this time, and I submit this matter to the chair and the board for your further recommendation.
Okay, two things before we start. We have a board member that wasn't present last time and I believe won't be participating.
Yeah, I'm going to abstain. I had intended to watch the presentation the last time, but a 10-month-old ear infection got in the way. So my apologies.
We understand.
If this matter is tied up or is carried over on votes, then I'll have reviewed it ahead of the next.
Okay, thank you. And the other matter is the public hearing was closed, but I would propose that we give each side 2 minutes to tell us anything new that has occurred since the last meeting. And I think that was it. Any objections to giving them 2 minutes each to speak?
No objection.
Maximum?
2 minutes maximum.
Thank you. And then we'll get a surprise on
You have a
how we
question?
voted last time. Just, yeah.
This matter was deferred at the close of the public hearing, so actually the board hasn't deliberated yet.
Okay, so with that, we'll ask the appellants to state their names, addresses, and give us an update as to what has occurred since the last time we met.
Okay, Kim Hawkins, Hawkins Partners, 110 South 10th Street, representing the owner. I'm going to go really fast with 2 minutes. We appreciate you all referring this back. We're able to meet with and have continuing conversations with all of the property owners that are immediately north. That's 20 different properties represented by 5 persons. All of those parcels are currently zoned either MUGA or CS, which are all commercial and moderately intensity of development. I'd love to answer lots of your questions. What we have done, and you have an exhibit that indicates we are not providing, have not asked for any special exception at all along Ligon. The area of special exception is indicated here along Dickerson and Auction Way, with very small pieces right here along Whites Creek. 2 things that we have done is we're required to have a 0-foot setback with our current CS zoning. We have provided 38-foot setback. We are providing that part of a special exception. It's allowed to be 0. So we are doing that, in which case you would have 38 feet, plus these properties are required to have a 20-foot rear setback, so there would be 58 feet between buildings there. We have also added setbacks along Whites Creek that go beyond what is required even by the current CS. It's required to be 15 feet. We have provided between 35 feet and 5 feet.
I'll ask a question and I'll stop the clock for.
Thank you.
Now, were those changes made since the time of the last? Okay. Thanks.
And all of the additional information that's been provided, you all have new sections that show the relationships and show the relationship to those zonings. Those were all provided as additional exhibits as well.
Okay, and we have another question.
So I just have a question. I know Dickerson is a major corridor, and we see this a lot in Nashville because the way that Nashville developed, we put these residential neighborhoods right behind these like major corridors. And I think Dickerson might have double frontage where like the setbacks, because I know on the other side of Dickerson it does. So I know that that can be a lot can be done on that Dickerson, that route. I guess my question is, and the thing I've been thinking about since our last hearing, is like, what would your response be to the argument that even though you guys aren't really you're not asking for a special exception on Dickerson or on Ligon, like how does that not adversely impact maybe that neighborhood that's sort of developing behind it?
Okay, I would love to. So two of the things that I just said, all of those properties that are north of us are zoned MUGA and CS. They are all zoned for commercial and high-intensity uses. Some of those parcels are actually under development right now for 7 stories above ground plus 2 to 3 floors of parking underneath. Those properties that are MUG are already allowed to be 105 feet. There are 3 of of the 20 properties actually have single-family on them right now. Those are identified by Metro as non-conforming use, meaning they have been in place since before 1974. Those are all owned by Mr. and Mrs. Stevens. We met with Mr. Stevens. He is not here. We've had continuing conversations with him. He is supportive of this. So I would say that north of that, we also then have duplexes, 2- and 3-story duplexes. So they're really single family. There are a few leftover pieces from 50 years ago, but it is not a single-family residential neighborhood. It is zoned CS and MUGA, which are high-intensity commercial uses.
Thank you.
Does that answer your
Yes,
question?
you did answer my question. Thank you. Very well.
I know you have a couple seconds left. Were there any other questions before she starts again? Okay, keep going.
If I have a couple seconds left, I would like to just reiterate, if you do not recall from last time, we are compliant with the Skyline Redevelopment District passed by MDHA in 2007 and the Dickerson South Corridor Plan that was passed with a lot of community involvement in February of 2020, and completely compliant with all of the policy of T4CC and T4MU, which is the broader community plan.
And Coin Pool, 511 Union Street, Suite 2700. The only other things that I will add is that Councilmember Parker is in support of the development. He said that he was going to send in an email. You have numerous letters in your packet from from neighboring property owners also showing their support. This past Tuesday, Councilmember Parker approved the CSNS zone change, so there won't be any short-term rentals on that Whites Creek property or in the development. And we had the neighborhood, we had a meeting on July the 14th with the neighbors. We found that to be hugely successful. We made some modifications and was able to garner support from Mr. Stevens as well as Ms. Crow.
Thank you, and that'll conclude your time.
Thank you.
She's going to have to put this back together, but this is just a scale model of.
Okay, you'll have to identify yourself, name, address, and then
Thank you, and if you could speak into the microphone, that way we can make sure that the proceedings are being recorded.
So my name's Jeff Kindig. I own 27 Ligon. I don't think that characterizing Fred and Norma's support is, I don't think they're massively supportive of it. I think that they don't think they've really got an ability to challenge it, but they didn't show up. They chose not to. I did speak to them. I would posit that I'd like to thank Councilmember Parker for hooking us up with the developer, and I'd like to thank the developer for making himself available quickly. Hopefully it doesn't take too much of my time. Just some points that I provided to you in this handout. It does significantly impact the single-family dwellings. Norma Crow built her house less than 2 years ago, so I don't know why they're saying that they're all non-conforming. She built a two-story $1 million house right next to my 27 Ligon property. She currently resides there. Additionally, on page 4 of the developer site plan, the width of the access road is 37 to 40 feet. They did make some concessions on the setback from Whites Creek. The structure is 141 feet tall by approximately 270 feet wide. The width does not, I came up with the width based on the width of the lots. It does not show on the plan that I had. Basically, the building's facade is approximately the size of a football field sitting next to the Ligon bluff. If you look at the sun study on page 11 of the developer's presentation, it shows significant shadows cast across the current residence. They're not planning on moving. Fred's house is probably a $1 million house, just to be very candid, #1 location and style. Norma's is as well. And their own study shows that the existing properties would be adversely affected from a shadow based on their plan on the skyline.
Can I interrupt, the opposition, ask you a question? Yes. So you heard my question about whether or not there was an adverse impact on that particular neighborhood. and you heard her response, and it sounds like a lot of those properties are zoned for very intense development or commercial development. What would your response, I hear your argument that there's sort of a shadow cast and that would be your adverse impact. What's your response to the applicant's sort of?
A good question. My response is that the 105 feet on the south side of Ligon is not a realistic, even though some of the stuff is zoned that way, the height of those properties cannot be 105 feet because you can never park them. So yes, most of that area is non-owner occupied STRs, but literally from the top of Fern, I mean, if you look at the bulk from the top of Fern, those people are not planning on moving on the south side. They're building 3 townhomes on the south side. My response would be that the redevelopment, the Skyline redevelopment district specifically recognizes and calls for appropriate buffering between less dense existing development, not future development, existing. So, and to be specific, the zoning code will generally apply. However, MDHA may require additional buffering to afford commercial, residential, and pedestrian interest protection from traffic noise, glare, trash, odors, negative visual impacts, and other harmful effects likely caused by the introduction of a more intensive use. This is a significantly more intensive use. That's the bluff across Ligon. This is the building, and it's to scale. It's not perfect. Kim, it was very, very good to us in the meeting. I would welcome them to, question the scale, but that is pretty much to scale. In other words, this is the bluff, the houses aren't shown. That's going to be the building, and it's to scale from the setback too. We are asking, and I don't want to miss this, on the last page, I've got a couple other things.
I think you have 30 seconds remaining.
Okay. I just want to say that a special exception is not an entitlement. It is it has to be granted. And you can impose special conditions, notwithstanding a finding by the Board of Zoning Appeals that special exception application satisfies the minimum development standards, require extraordinary setbacks, impose other reasonable conditions necessary to protect public health, safety, and welfare. We would ask, we're not fighting the development. What we would like to do is we would like to see the special exception be approved with the following special conditions: a minimum setback of 100 feet off of Ligon and 50 feet off White's Creek.
The public hearing has ended. I believe your conditions are in your...
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Your proposed conditions. Okay.
So if I can ask, you mentioned on your conditions here that you're asking for on White's Creek. White's Creek is bordered on the other side by the interstate. Why are you asking for additional setback on that?
Well, our concern there is just the bulk and size of the building. It's massive. We actually discussed with the developer during the meeting. I asked if there was any possibility of maybe making the other building, I think it's building 4, maybe a little taller, so it's not, because this is going to introduce significant privacy concerns for all of the residences that are currently on Ligon. Anything that's built on Ligon, this is going to, you're literally 35 feet. So we're from about here to that wall, from that building to the houses that are built. And this represents 270 feet, so about probably 6 times the size of this. So it's a massive structure. And White's Creek currently backs up with individuals coming from downtown trying to cut over to West Trinity, trying to cut over to Bordeaux. The BZA does have the right to ask for a traffic study, and we think it would be prudent for a traffic study to be required prior to this development being, or any special exception. And this is, unfortunately, is our only venue right now. When we got the notice, it was a PUD.
I do have another question. So you mentioned you have an adjacent property. What is your property adjacent zone for?
It is zoned for MUGA, but it could never be parked.
Is there currently a structure there, or is it in a vacant property, or?
I had planned on building my house there.
Okay.
Had planned.
Yeah, sure. Okay.
Okay, any further questions?
Well, yeah, so maybe this is a question for codes more, but in Mr. Kindig's letter that he provided us here, he mentions that MDHA may require additional buffering to afford commercial, residential, pedestrian interest protection. Is that a subsequent review process to this one?
It's MDHA will be a signatory on any permit, so they will have to review.
Okay.
And can
This is in the MDHA redevelopment district. Okay.
Can I ask another question? Mr. Kindig, it's been probably a good year and a half I've cut through Whites Creek to get to West Trinity Lane. Is it still, from what I remember, is it still sort of like a 2-lane kind of road? It's still wooded over there?
It's a 2-lane road, and it gets very backed up, especially in the afternoon. Individuals cutting off of Dickerson, coming downtown, and cutting over to either the back way to 65, right there as you go across Fern, you take the right, and I don't know what street that is, or cutting straight through and going around the river to get to Whites Creek and West Trinity.
Okay, thanks. That was my question.
Okay, any further questions?
Can I make one comment about Parker? I did talk to Parker Brown at MDHA.
Well, the public hearing is closed, but I'm going to give the applicant another minute to come back and talk with us, so I'll allow this one.
Okay. I did talk to Parker Brown, and he was, when I first found out about MDHA, because I had to discuss that before I bought the property, their process from talking to the codes people was yes, but he did indicate that, they will look at how this has progressed. So one of the reasons that, we're not asking you to stop something, we're asking you to put special conditions, which is absolutely within your purview of authority. And he's, if this thing is approved, Parker's likely going to approve it. It was just presented as a PUD. I think if people really knew that this is what was going to happen, they would have, showed up to. And I almost sent letters out, but I didn't. So
thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate it. And I do appreciate Brandon, the developers, meeting with us on short notice. He flew in from Connecticut, and Sean Parker reaching out to us.
Thank you. I had a question for you all, but if you'd all like to start first, it's fine.
Or if you'd like to ask questions first. That might be.
I think I wanted to hear their spiel first. Do you mind, Christina?
I don't mind at all.
Okay, well, I'm going to go very quickly, but the other residential that Mr. Kindig is referring to, he owns one of the 20 parcels. It's immediately adjacent. The other's Ms. Crow. Her property, we're going by what Metro calls it. It's referred to as general commercial. She has a general commercial building there. Her residence is an accessory use on top. So there is some residential use. Residential use is officially not allowed in CS zoning. So I just want to clarify that. All of the things that Mr. Kindig has referred to as far as relationship to the property line and height, this is what is allowed by CS zoning, which is what it's currently zoned. None of the things that he's responded to they're all allowed in our base zoning. It has nothing to do with a special exception. We did indeed move the building back on Whites Creek Pike, and we did elect to provide the 38-foot setback against their property line. The bluff here goes from 30 feet to 60 feet.
I'll ask the question because the public hearing did end, but I could not find that in our packet and was wondering if I could get a copy of that. It might be.
There were some additional records that were added, I think Monday perhaps, and they're in the SharePoint.
I have copies. Here's an 11 by 17.
I have an older SharePoint.
I have 2 copies of 8.5 by 11. We have 2 copies of 11 by 17 and 2 copies of 8.5 by 11 that show those additional exhibits.
You could have those and have a minute to look at those.
I'd be glad to tell you which pages were added, if that's helpful. I think that those are very pertinent to this conversation.
And it may just be I couldn't find it myself. I don't know if you found it either.
The page numbers that were, if it's okay for me to say this, the page numbers that were added were page number 3 that identifies all of the adjacent zoning and those adjacent property owners, so you can see what land areas they own, what the zoning is, and general information there. Page 4A is a document that shows what the setbacks are that we provided. Those are in purple on that sheet. That's on page 4A. That shows the 38 feet along the property line at Ligon, and it shows the varying setbacks along Whites Creek. On page 4B, you see the very dark orange. That's the one that I've held up previously, that is this one. The very dark orange is showing the areas where we're asking for the special exception for setback. You see that that is almost entirely on Dickerson and Auction Way. There are these very little triangles, a little piece right here on Whites Creek and another one right here on Whites Creek. Those are the only areas that we're asking for special exception. Everything else on this property is allowed to be built right now by right under the CS zoning that is in place, that is consistent with the Dickerson South Skyline redevelopment. Our 38-foot setback that we provided along Ligon, in addition to the 20-foot setback that is required on those adjacent lots, provides 58 feet between parcels, knowing that there is also a significant grade change. Our parcel sits down significantly, and you can see that on the cross sections that are identified on pages 5, 6, and 7.
And the only thing I would add is as Ms. Hawkins has said, there are 20 adjoining properties. The gentleman who's here today is one of those 20. The remaining 19 parcels are people who we spoke with, and they've evidenced that they do not oppose this development. And the one person who's here, his lot is zoned MUG. I know he said that his desire is to build a single-family home, but this property was rezoned within the last few years. If the goal was to build a single-family home, while he owned it, why wouldn't you just rezone to RS5 or RS6? I think there's an intent when you...
Excuse me, Quan. I'm talking to the chair at this point, because we're getting a little bit more into a presentation again.
I think that was a little bit further than the question. I think the time was out, if I recall. So did anyone else have any questions? Okay, so we will close the public hearing and discuss. I'm still getting familiar with the drawings. I don't know about anyone else.
Well, yeah, absolutely. I'll say I'm sympathetic to Mr. Kendig. I do understand his concern, but at the same time, this is a rapidly redeveloping corridor, rapidly redeveloping part of town, and I mean, it's clear that, his own property doesn't have a structure on it. Is evidence of that. I mean, you look at the structures along Ligon there, and it's mostly vacant lots. And I'm sure that they want views of downtown. Everybody wants views of downtown. Why wouldn't you? So, let's call out the elephant in the room. This is going to block some of their views to downtown. But at the same time, this is significantly less impactful than what could be built here by right. And I think with the neighborhood support presented, with the with the council member support very clearly laid out, I think these are more than reasonable special exceptions for this site. Trees.
So I don't know if I agree with Mr. Newton. As somebody that grew up over here, who up until recently drove down this corridor every day, I will say that, like, when I look at these pictures, like right here on Ligon, these are residential homes. I don't actually care about protecting views because that's not our job, but I do think our job is to consider whether or not yes, there's always been commercial activity on this part of Dickerson, and in fact, Auction Way used to be where you could go auction and buy like a cheap car. So this has always had commercial activity, but right behind it has always sort of been residential. And I don't like the argument that, well, it's rezoned this. Like, this is rezoned commercial and they're putting residential homes in it. I don't know what, yes, there's some intensive zoning here, but at this point, I don't know what those people will do with that intensive zoning. And considering how narrow of a road Ligon is, I don't know how much it can actually withstand anyway due to the size of the road. And then, like I said, there's also an existing context. I'm not against this development. I think the applicant has done a really good job, and I think they've done a really good job addressing the neighbor's concern. I think the only thing left in my mind is there something that can be done on the setback along Ligon, because I think such an intensive development. Is this Haley's Savage Yard? Is this what used to be there? Yeah. So that was the former building. Due to its height, didn't really negatively impact anything around it. I think the height and the size of these buildings, there's a potential argument that it could. And so I just think we should at least consider that, especially considering the opposition did do such a thorough job presenting their case. So those are my initial thoughts.
I couldn't see what you were pointing towards. Were you pointing towards the far side of Ligon?
So behind it, where these little houses look like they're being built right here, yeah, that's what I was pointing to.
Okay.
And a lot of Ligon is vacant, but right here there's being built, and then a block over from Ligon is Fern, and Fern has a bunch of residential houses on it. That whole area, that whole street has been redeveloped.
Trees.
Really only one cares about a tree hugger.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's just to be honest.
Any other comments?
This may be a question for legal. I'm not going to vote because I didn't watch the last meeting. But if there's since we're having discussion and deliberation on what's before us, is it permissible for me to make an observation about?
You're going to make an observation without voting today?
Well,
I'm just asking.
Oh, yeah. Well, I can't. I mean, based upon the new information that's been presented today, not on the
old stuff.
Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
I would say no, since you're not
That's fine.
voting.
Okay, that's cool.
Thanks for trying.
Yeah. No. That's it.
I'm still taking all this in. It's a really good presentation that we're looking at here. But it seems to me the matter at hand is special exception requests along Dickerson and Auction Way and not along Ligon.
There's a special the zoning, the setback on White Street Pike was one of the special exceptions requested. That's what these little guys are. Yeah, a little small part. Then the primary special exception was the height at the setback there as well.
Right, in
the
these
max
in
heights
the
on those sides. Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm sympathetic with the property owners on Ligon as well, but it does seem the applicant has made some concessions and have moved the building inward on their property.
Can they put trees in there?
I'm sure street trees are, in the,
In that little area
I think it's a drive. I think it's a drive. So any further discussion? Any motions?
Just as you prepare to make a motion, I wanted to call your attention to all those conditions that planning and NDOT has recommended. And so you may, of course, you don't have to adopt all of those, but I just wanted you to be thinking about them. Thanks.
So can I ask the architects then, since you guys are, so, like I said, I agree with you all. I think the applicant did a very thorough job, and I think that they made concessions. So yeah, like incredible. I agree with Mr. Lawless. Is what the opposition asking for just not workable? Like, is there just enough concessions that have already been made, and that, because like you said, it is on Dickerson. I think what they're saying is like, yeah, it's on Dickerson, but it negatively impacts our little side street. And so I guess, and I do think, like I said, the applicant has done an incredible job and made concessions. If this is like the best that can be done, given the property and everything else, then I can accept that argument. I was just wanting to at least go through in my brain whether or not that had been done, because I'd been thinking about it for a week. I drove by there last week, so I just wanted to make sure.
I think it's, I want to say the best that can be done, but there's a lot that's allowed by right, and we're only unfortunately looking at the dark orange triangles that are on the sections.
Okay.
Height control plane, and that's what we're looking at to see whether or not it's appropriate that the building can fit the height control plane. So I can't say that's the best, but that's what I feel we're looking at.
It was thoughtfully put together. I mean, they didn't just slap it down there to make it.
There are no motions. I will.
I'll make a motion to grant the special exception. At least we get past thinking of it.
I'll second, just so we can talk about it.
And please clarify whether any or all of those conditions are going to be incorporated. Thank you.
Provided.
Will me as well. I will accept that amendment.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so there's a motion to approve the special exception request along with the conditions requested by planning and NDOT, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
I mean, so if we're in discussion, right, on the motion?
Yes, you agreed with that, the second on that.
I did.
Then we can discuss.
Yep. You know, if there's, I mean, the only thing that I can think of that kind of gets along to Ms. Davis's question is, you know, there possibly, I mean, you could possibly say that along the Whites Creek, and I'm sorry, I'm still digesting these totally, but maybe on the Whites Creek side to adjust the setback at the max height of the build to line along Whites Creek to be something lower, because that's the only thing that I see in this that gives me some heartburn is just that, and I think that gets down to Mr. Kindick's concerns as well, being that that side of it does slope down there. The hillside does slope down on that side.
Okay, so then I could support a motion that addresses that.
Okay.
You don't want it to be as tall.
I don't want it, yeah. And I know what slope he's talking about, because there's kind of like a bluff over there that.
Yeah, you can see on the contour lines that are on the presented offer.
It's in this, yeah, it's kind of like in here.
Yeah.
So, remember, Newton and Davis, we're talking limiting the height of these two.
Yes, yeah, adjusting the requested, I'm just making sure I understand this, the requested max height at the build to line on Whites Creek is 12 stories here, which looks about, oh gosh, got sea level on here, 150 feet or so, 141 2 feet. Maybe that's something more like 100 feet along the Whites Creek side.
We'll have this completely explained before we.
Yes.
I know the applicant is.
Yeah, I know that they may have some reason why that can't be done.
And we would love to make.
Well, just give me 1 second. So, were you finished with your thoughts?
Yes.
Okay. So, let's see, there was motions we were discussing, so I think we will.
Vote down mine if you want to come back up with something that works, doesn't hurt.
Well, you can withdraw yours too.
Well, then, are you going to withdraw your second and my first? I'll withdraw my motion so that we can fashion something.
And thank you. And I just wanted to say thank you to Mr. Newton. And I guess my question to the applicant when they come back to us, because based off of his recommendation, is I know that a lot of this, from you all's perspective, is like that you guys have the entitlements, and we understand that you guys have the entitlements. But I think it's also important, as someone who was on the Dickerson Road Study Committee, that a lot of the heights that they talked about during the committee were concentrated on Dickerson. And I know that the final plan eventually allowed stuff on Whites Creek, but I will tell you, from a former neighborhood perspective, I don't know if anyone anticipated that intensity also being on Whites Creek, but it is in the plan, and I agree with you. And so I know as things develop, that sort of is permissible, but I'm just a little concerned about that sort of narrow road that Ligon is and what it abuts up against. So that's it. You guys may completely reject what I just said.
So we'll open the public hearing, but only to ask a question of my colleague who has thoughtfully put forward.
Yes, thoughtfully. Thank you, Logan.
Trying to take all this in. So I guess the question would be, what objection, if any, would there be to, say, having a max height of approximately 100 feet along the Whites Creek build-to line, at the requested build-to line?
I mean, are we, sorry, you're not talking to us. You're not talking to
I'm talking to the applicants.
I think while they're discussing, why don't you ask your question?
Unless you have it, yeah.
All right, so, Newton, I think we got to consider like where the plane of reference is. Are we referencing from Whites Creek?
I'm referencing from the requested build-to line, which is well, it's 5 feet at the smallest point, and
so if we're looking at like, say we reference page 7 and 8.
Okay.
So if we're looking at, we have that drop off, we have that bluff.
We don't have Whites Creek on 7 or 8 though.
Right. But we have that bluff. Are we concerned about views from those properties on Ligon? And if so,
I'm not concerned necessarily about views. I'm concerned about density, air, light, shadow, wind velocity patterns along there. But yeah, it's ostensibly yes.
Okay, so does the applicant have a question then for my colleague about his proposal?
And also, too, thank you for that, because, I think it's important to say that, I don't care about views. I really am concerned about the air, shadow, and the light, because, to his point, Dickerson is a 4-lane highway. It goes 2 ways, right? Whites Creek is a commercial street. Ligon is, about as wide as my pen, and so even though those properties are zoned for that, those properties can never be as built as high as those just because the road couldn't hold it. So I think that's our main concern, if you guys can address that. And if I misstated that, somebody please correct me.
That's fine. Yeah.
Well, we do plan to widen Ligon, that's one of the conditions that planning is put forth. So we're going to make that dedication and widening that portion of the street.
On our side.
On our side.
About how many feet?
Yeah, by how many feet?
The total requirement is 50 feet, and it's currently 30 feet right now. So we're making the overall adjustment so that it meets the major collector and street plan.
So that'd be 10 feet on your property.
Be 20 feet from our
all of the new right-of-way coming from your side? Okay.
Correct.
Okay.
So that'd be dedicated if we approve it.
But what about Whites Creek? Is that, are you wanting that, or is that?
What I'll just note is that Whites Creek is identified in the major collector and street plan as a collector.
Okay.
There will be some improvements made on Whites Creek because they have to be made to be consistent with the major collector and street plan. We've indicated that on our site plan, especially in accordance with sidewalk widths. That is an 8-foot sidewalk and a 4-foot planting strip, curb and gutter, et cetera. So those improvements would be made as a part of this project. We also will need to comply with whatever requirements NDOT adds to their list as we go through the overall process. Keep that in mind.
So did you have any specific questions, or are you still?
Yeah, I'm still trying to get to the line of, because I think this is getting towards Ms. Davis's concern on this, is on the White, okay, so, because I'm just looking, you probably know this off the top of your head. On the Whites Creek side, what is your requested height at the build to line?
Let me get to that section. Hold on one second. The height, the build to line varies from, we've done something from 5 feet to 35 feet. The overall height right there is, let me see if I can read this even with my glasses. What does that say? Quan's younger than I am. I think that's 130, is that 130 feet from right there, 464 to?
Yeah, what is it? 139.
Yeah, it's 139 right now. Sorry about that.
Okay, no, that's
My eyes aren't as
okay.
good.
Well, and my thought there is if the adjacent bluff is sloping down, then maybe the building could kind of step down there too, along with the topography, so that air, light, shadow, wind velocity, all that kind of stuff is good. So, would there be a strong objection to saying maybe that's 100 feet there rather than 139 on that Whites Creek build too?
So I just want to make sure that we understand that you're saying that if the building height at setback is 100 feet versus the 139.
Correct.
Is that correct? John, I think
so
that
then the height control plane would start from there.
that would provide another.
Right, yeah.
Can we agree with that?
I think we can.
Okay. So is that, Ms. Davis, does that kind of help to?
Thank you, yes.
Okay, okay.
Okay, so we will close the public hearing again, and we probably should do this motion before.
You are doing the motion, wow.
Okay. All right. I will make a motion that we approve the special exception with the recommendations from planning that were recommended, as well as on the Whites Creek build to line, the height control plane would start at 100 feet on that right of way.
A second.
But are we also going to include the dedication for the street widening?
That's in there already. Yeah, that's already in there.
Already required.
And
the traffic control over on Whites Creek is going to make it, I mean, you're turning this from a little street to a much bigger street, and with the development.
it's also a one-sided street. Like you have the interstate on the other side. So honestly, I'm less worried about traffic. I mean, it's literally it's got developed on one side of that street. Its sole purpose is to move cars. I mean, who's going to be walking up? At least on the interstate side, who's going to be walking along that side?
I'm just talking about having a light or some type of traffic control to get people in the right direction, getting out of there instead of. I don't disagree with what we're doing. I'm not going to vote against it. I don't mind telegraphing. Okay. I was just asking the magic question.
Yeah, I mean.
Yes, ma'am.
But it is.
So we had a motion and a second, and we've had discussion.
We can go.
And I have one comment to make, but is there other discussion?
I just had one clarification, if I could, before you all vote, and also, so the planning conditions are going to be incorporated, and I understand that the NDOT
correct, and the NDOT, yeah. Okay. Is that okay with Ms. Davis?
That was my comment.
Okay, that was your comment. Well.
Yeah, we're on the same wavelength today, so, okay, a motion, a second. We are going to take a vote. All in favor, raise your hand and say aye. So we have 5 in favor, 1 abstention. So that passes. And we will take a 5-minute break.
Okay.
Start our recording back up. Thank you, everybody. The next case on the board's agenda today is 2022-87. This is a request for variance to retain a fence at 4900 Illinois in the R6 zoning district. The Property Standards Division has issued an abate notice because the fence is opaque and too high for within the location that it's sitting in. Here we have a photo of the zoning district and the aerial view of this area. It's in the Nations. This is the front view of the home. And then here you can see some views of the fence and as well as like the sidewalk and the alley to the back of it. Kind of get a sense of what the lot looks like on that side. And then it's a corner lot, so this photo is from the other side of 49th. And this is the site plan. Do we have an opposition to this case? Seeing none, Madam Vice Chair, if the applicants would wish to come forward, just please make sure that you state your name and confirm your address before you get started.
Hi, I'm Andrew Zally at 4900 Illinois, and this is my wife.
Chelsea Zally, 4900 Illinois.
We're just here today. We just purchased our first home last September. This home that you see here, we're the homeowners. As part of that process, we consulted our builder and Mid-South Fence Company to put up a fence because we were on the corner lot, which is a lot that gets a lot of foot traffic as well as cars driving very quickly up and down 49th to get to some of the new locations in the Nations. And ultimately, we have just want our protection and our safety. We have a dog that we like to let run around in our backyard. And that was September when we built the house and moved in. February, we got a letter about a complaint, and are just here today to just really ask for this variance because majority of the houses in the Nations have a very similar fence. We don't seem to look like a very different house than anyone else in the neighborhood. We've got a lot of support from our neighbors. I think that's part of this case as well. The council, Mary Carolyn Roberts, also sent in a letter of support for us. We've been in contact with her. Anything else? That's it.
See if there are any questions from the board.
Yeah, well, just to confirm, you noted in your, and I believe it was a letter that you had sent to the board that the lot is, you said about 700 square feet less than the minimum?
Yes.
Okay.
It's a very narrow lot. We're about 10 feet from the sidewalk, which is why we wanted the fence.
Got it.
Just to confirm, the fence is on your property, not on the right-of-way, right?
Correct.
Okay.
How far is it from the road?
10 feet.
Further questions? We will close the public hearing and we'll discuss. I'll say, it's okay to stay. I'll say originally thought this could be on the consent agenda, but due to a technicality, it wasn't able to stay on the consent, to be on the consent agenda.
Yeah, I don't have any issue with it. It's, a lot of neighborhood, the people who would care the most are the ones that all support it in their neighborhood, letters and everything, it seemed like, so.
Yeah, I mean, I think the hardship, the narrowness of the lot is pretty clear. Just looking at it, it seems very tight, so.
Any motions?
Making all the motions today.
Between you and me, you're absolutely
That's right. I will make a motion that we approve the variance based on the narrowness of the lot.
Okay, we have a motion, a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, raise their hand, say aye. All opposed, none, so it passes 6-0. Good luck.
Okay, and then the next matter on the docket is listed as case 91, and Ms. Lamb had asked the board to consider hearing case 92 next. I did hear from the council member who didn't have an opportunity at that time to speak, and normally we give councilman courtesy for council members if they wish to speak at the top of the meeting. So at this time, I think that Councilmember Benedict may have a request pertaining to the chronology of those cases.
Is it okay if I speak from here?
Yeah.
All right, cool. Hey, good afternoon, and thank you all for your service. I forget how these meetings are long like this, so thank you. The appellant asked to flip-flop case 92 with case 91. I'd like to go ahead and move forward with case 91 if possible. I think that was agreed upon early in the meeting to flip those, but I'd like to go ahead and get this one heard earlier, if that's acceptable to the board.
That is, case 91 is your district?
That's correct.
Okay, let's vote on it. I don't have.
I'll make a motion that we move that case ahead on the docket.
Okay.
Back to the original place.
Move 91 ahead?
Yeah, back to its original place, yeah.
A second on that motion?
I'll second. Think about it.
I don't know. I don't have a preference either way, so I wanted to get an opinion. All right, all in favor of moving it? I'm in favor.
Yes.
All right, we will hear it now.
Case 2022-91 is a request for permission to pay into the pedestrian contribution fund in lieu of building sidewalks along Little Avenue in Chester for property located on a corner lot at 2430B Little Avenue in the R6 zoning district. The Planning Department has recommended disapproval and for the applicant to construct sidewalks along both of those street frontages. So the applicant has appealed by filing the request for the variance to this board. Here you can see the parcel in question and the zoning map. Here's an aerial view. This is an older photo because this lot doesn't have a structure on it. Here's a current view, and then you can see where the property backs up to an alley. Here's some photos of the sidewalk. To the right, you'll see the sidewalk on Little across the alley. So you're looking at the back of the property on that photo, close to where the tree is on the right. And then on the left, you can see there's a sidewalk across the street on Little. And then in the bottom left, I've got a photo of the kind of the terminus or the corner of that sidewalk where Little, the other side of Little, meets Chester. And then here we have the site plan that's been submitted by the applicant. We do have opposition. We'll give the applicant 10 minutes to make their presentation.
Good afternoon, board members. Good to see some of you again from this side of things, some of you for the first time. My name is Emily Lamb, 1801 West End Avenue. I'm here on behalf of the appellants and their request for a variance from the sidewalk requirements on 2430 Little Avenue. I just had staff pass out some photos that were not included in our submission, so I wanted to get those to your attention. I've also given one to the council member as well. This property, as Ms. Waits pointed out, is at the corner of Little Avenue and Chester Avenue. The proposal from the developer is to construct a single-family home that will be part of an HPR. There's an existing home there that was built before our current sidewalk ordinance was enacted. So there are no sidewalks there. Sidewalks were not required when that first home was built. So we're trying, the appellant would like to build a single-family home now, and that is triggering sidewalks on both frontages, the full frontage on both sides, including in front of the existing home. There are some existing hindrances on the property that are not in the letter, but I did just pass out the picture. You'll see in those photos, there's a fire hydrant that's existing that would have to be moved. There's an NES power pole, and then you'll see there's a decorative corner street sign that is in line with other street signs in the area, and then there are 4 mature trees that would have to come down if the strict compliance with the sidewalk requirements is enforced. Additionally, the existence of sidewalks on Little Avenue is what triggered sidewalks for the full frontage on Little and Chester. There's an existing alley that the aerial shows in between this property, and you can see it on that site plan, in between this property and the property that has the existing sidewalks. There's an existing alley. So the sidewalk that would be built here would be broken up by that alley. Arguably, that little avenue is the full block face if you consider the fact that the right-of-way is breaking up this property from the rest of the street on Little, from that side on Little. And there are no sidewalks anywhere on Chester, either on this side of from this house to the right or all the way down the left side of Chester. I'm sorry, I'm north, south, east, west, directionally challenged, so I got to go with right and left if you're looking at pictures. So there are no sidewalks anywhere on Chester. So again, if strict compliance is required, we would have a sidewalk broken up by an alley and then a sidewalk on Chester to nowhere. Additionally, Metro's stormwater required a spread study which revealed extensive infrastructure improvements for their regulations to the tune of $150,000. That does not include the installation of the sidewalk. These improvements require specifically, let me find what those are, 275 linear foot drain system upgrade with 8 catch basins. That would trigger the need for a full grading permit, which would introduce additional costs as well as significant delays in the approval process, which is going to back all of this up by months for one single family home. So, more than the cost of the infrastructure requirements would be the significant time delay that would be imposed on this development. So between the current conditions of the power pole, the fire hydrant, the existing trees, as well as the unique and exceptional fact that on this block, this is a corner lot. It's the only one in this whole block face that's going to have to do the double frontage with no other sidewalks on the Chester block. And the disproportionately large costs, delays, and regulatory requirements imposed, I think those demonstrate clearly the hardship as well as potentially raising questions of an exaction for those infrastructure requirements. We're requesting to contribute in lieu for both frontages, so we're not asking not to do anything, we're just asking to contribute in lieu, which rather than having a sidewalk to nowhere and a broken sidewalk would allow the city to use that investment to put sidewalks in another location that would better enhance pedestrian mobility, which of course is the goal of the sidewalk ordinance. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions. I'll hold the rest of my time if I need it for rebuttal.
Ms. Lamb?
Yes.
So I drive through this neighborhood to a friend's house, so it's close to where I live, and I'm familiar. So remind me, I know that one of the reasons why it was so much for you guys to upgrade is because there's no drainage currently in this area. Isn't it like ditches or?
I would have to ask the appellant to come forward to get into the specifics. He's the one who has worked with the engineer so closely, so he'll be able to better answer that question.
Okay, will you state your name and address?
Hi there, my name is Keith Quinn, and I'm 928 Marengo Lane, and I'm not the owner of the property. I'm the hired general contractor for the property, and I have been working on this property from a development perspective since the beginning of the property. I did want to add one more thing, was the corner where you see all the lights and the trees and the fire hydrant. That property in the front, that's 1310 or 1210. That's not owned by the current client. That's owned by a separate family that has I think it's a couple, 2 men, it's a couple. And if we do have to do something to that area, perception-wise, I think it'll still be a conversation we need to have with the current homeowners to let them know that these trees are all within our power to take down if we have to.
The drainage.
Yes. So I'm going to repeat to you exactly what Mr. Eli Anderson told us. The hardship is not, it's not really, we're trying to not do the sidewalk, but it says the hardship is per Eli Anderson, it says the new sewer needs to be laid low enough to continue the sewer line. The new sewer should meet the minimum coverage. The existing sewer, he's confirming this, he says it may not be low enough to do what it's supposed to do. So that's why we're having to spend $150,000 is because stormwater, when they laid the infrastructure, initially it was done incorrectly. And in order for us to build the sidewalk, we have to fix their problem. And that's the hardship.
But for the sidewalks, we would not have to make these improvements. So the sidewalk, installation of the sidewalk would trigger these excessive improvements
and
due to a past mistake.
Recognize that this infrastructure wasn't done right, but if we have to build a sidewalk, then we have to fix their problem, and that's our hardship.
So how much of a sidewalk is required here? Is it like 4-foot grass strip and?
You mean as far as the length? Or
yeah, like is it like a?
It's a standard minor street, so it's like 4 or 5 or something. 4 or 5, okay. 4, something like that.
Okay, so if you did have to build a sidewalk, so your house is a 10-foot setback, so you're talking about, well, I guess part of that's in the right of way. So if you had to build a sidewalk, that would definitely push your house back, right? Or is that
the way the site plan right now is approved for permitting the way it is? The sidewalk will be outside of the building footprint.
Okay. But I'm also seeing the existing house is 13-foot-9 back, so it gets really close to that existing house as well. Is that what I'm?
Yeah, if it's a 4.445, then yes.
Okay.
It's pretty close to the house, yes.
And you stated that the current property owners don't own the existing house that's there? That's a different owner?
HPR.
It's
so
HPR, okay.
The one owner owns the one, somebody else owns the existing structure.
Right, okay.
Our client, general contractor for proposed structure, and then the rest is common area.
Okay, gotcha.
So just to make sure I understood this, besides for my 4 trees, which I think everybody that's ever watched this stuff knows I'm into trees, $150,000 approximately to
do the stormwater infrastructure improvements, correct?
Yes. Before we even get to.
That does not include the cost of installing the sidewalk, which is not necessarily relevant, but yeah, that's just for the infrastructure improvements that stormwater would require.
And to be fair, I'm assuming that this sewer line is for the whole street. It's just y'all's portion. So feasibly, y'all could impact the rest of the neighbors if y'all mess with this one part and you can't see the rest of it's under somebody else's property, so you have no responsibility. But it's all a line, so it all is a system.
It's a commercial street improvement, yes.
Okay, any additional questions?
Looks like Mr. Newton is thinking about something.
I'm thinking. I'm formulating. Yeah.
Oh, wait a minute. Do we have
have you?
a council person?
We do have a council person here. But did you explore alternative sidewalk designs in this process that may not be as impactful or?
I don't know that we did not actively explore those.
Okay.
I know that this, as our letter points out and as the law requires, we did go to the waiver committee and made the request to the waiver committee. So we weren't privy to those conversations. I don't know if they explored those or not, but those would be the people who would be able to assess that and determine if it's possible.
Okay.
Okay, any additional questions? Close the public hearing and you'll have some time to come back.
We have opposition person.
Mm-hmm. Right, we'll call the opposition, then they'll come back.
Thank you again, Lord, for hearing this case first. I'm Emily Benedict, Metro Councilwoman, District 7, 4900 Ruskin Avenue. I sent a letter to the board this week in regards to this, and I think there's a couple of things I want to point out. One, when I was elected, this area of the district was a horseshoe, and there's been tremendous development in that area over the past 5 to 10 years, none of which came with sidewalks because it was not in the UZO. The number one thing that I hear about is traffic calming. We had a head-on collision this week on Gallatin Pike. People are aware of the dangers of being on our streets, and this is something that they have charged me with to make sure that we're getting sidewalks. The purpose of the sidewalk ordinance is to get the sidewalks built more quickly, and then NDOT now, former Public Works, would come around and fill in those gaps. That's what we need done. We rely on developers to put these sidewalks in because it's going to build up our sidewalk network more quickly. The couple things. The first thing is that, so I'm a residential realtor, and I understand what a due diligence process looks like. And I think my largest concern here is that this is something that could have been discovered by the buyer, the current owner, at the time that they bought the purchase, or at the time they purchased the land or the back half of the HPR. The UZO passed in December of 2020. They closed on this property in July of 2021. So to me, part of their due diligence is to understand what type of infrastructure needs to be completed, and it should not be on taxpayers' backs to cover a mistake or an oversight on their part, especially when these taxpayers are saying, Emily, build us sidewalks. So I think that that's a very important piece that, quite frankly, really is, if I'm you and I'm not you, that to me is something that, we want to make sure that people are looking at what the zoning code is, what the requirements are, so that we can avoid all of this. So I do want to say also, we know the in lieu fee isn't comparable to the cost that the city incurs to do this type of infrastructure. And then, a moment ago, I appreciate that you asked about alternate sidewalk locations and whatnot, because to me, what I heard a second ago is almost a threat to the neighbors that they're going to cut down the trees if they want to cut down the trees in order to make the sidewalk work. That's not acceptable. There's absolutely ways that we can do alternative sidewalk locations to save trees, to work around structures that are there. Again, I'm not sure what infrastructure changes may or may not be able to be made by this board, but in my opinion, these folks should have done this diligence prior to this, and we would have been able to avoid this entire case. So with that, I would ask that you deny the request, and I appreciate once again your work. Thank you.
Questions for the councilwoman? Okay, I don't see any, so thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, council member, and I can certainly understand the concern regarding due diligence. I would like to point out that this property was purchased in July of 2021, so it would not have been discovered in the due diligence process because it was purchased at the time the ordinance went into effect. With that, I would just again point out that if we are required strict compliance, we're going to have a sidewalk to nowhere on Chester, and we're going to be forced to have extensive stormwater improvements required by another Metro department. And again, that we haven't done the research to confirm certainly, but it certainly at least raises questions of exactions on this property. Do you have anything else to add?
Yes. Yeah, I have a couple comments as well, and thank you, Ms. Benedict, for her comments as well, and the board for listening as well. And I disagree with Ms. Benedict on the due diligence piece. In fact, I do this all the time, and the caveat with, and we don't want to get, I'm happy to get into the details, but we don't have to. The caveat with due diligence is that during that time, we have to go through the waiver process, and that waiver process takes a month to do, or sometimes longer. So we don't even know if we can even pay the in lieu fee or go through the waiver process, because that takes 45 days just to get through the planning process, and that in turn gives me the ability to be here today. right? So during the waiver process, we've asked codes about sidewalk requirements and things like that. Well, the answer is you have to go through the waiver process. So we went through the waiver process. We were denied the applicant to waive the sidewalk. So Stormwater came back and said, we need further studies. So the further study is the infrastructure upgrade that Stormwater made the mistake on. And Stormwater is saying, well, it is, now that you have to do this spread study, you have to do the sidewalk, now we're gonna have to make you upgrade this infrastructure, which is atypical of a single-family residential. And here's the thing: we're not here not to want to do sidewalks. And I'm agreeing with Ms. Dennett. There's absolutely need for sidewalks, but is this the right place and the right site for this sidewalk? And the answer for us is there's enough hardships for us to be here today to make this case in front of you guys. And I would go back to my original point. It's like during the due diligence period, if I had all the time in the world, which is if I had the waiver process time for every single property that I'm looking for, then yes, I would be able to find that out. But I can't do that in this current market.
Any questions? I think we might have one coming here.
Well, I'm looking at just some of the items here. Okay, we got a fire hydrant. It's got to get moved. You got to do something with it. Well, whether you could see that or you couldn't. You got an NES pole floating around. Well, I don't know whether anybody else around here has had to deal with NES or moving the pole. Good luck. The trees. Emily, you know my soft spot for trees. I mean, come on. But the sewer and all of that part of it is bothering me. We're getting close to an inverse condemnation is what we're getting. It becomes unusable.
I was going to...
Well, I mean, how much... The value of the lot was what?
Maybe a couple $100,000. I'm just thinking about.
Answer my question. Thank you. I'm sorry.
I don't know if this is appropriate or not, but I did have a question for the council member, if that's okay.
Call the council back up.
Yep.
Councilmember, I think you made a really good argument about like due diligence, and I think some of this stuff could have been discovered. But I guess my one question is the sewer line something that could happen during due diligence? Like, is that something that you would discover just in the normal sort of things you investigate during, like, before you buy a property?
Absolutely. So civil engineering work can be done on developments, and that civil engineer, whether it's, there's a lot of big companies in town who can do that information and work with codes, work with planning to get that type of information. So it certainly is within the realm of possibility.
Okay, that was it.
I mean, I guess this is kind of getting on. Do you think it's reasonable to make people do these kind of infrastructure redevelopments for a single family dwelling to be able to build that?
This is an HPR, so I would say this is not a single family residence that's going to be a single family building, but it is a duplex lot.
Questions for the council person?
No, thank you.
I have a question for the applicant that piggybacks on a question that Mr. Newton just asked. The HPR documents, is there any provision that would provide for a sharing of any costs for infrastructure improvements?
I have not reviewed those. Again, the other owner purchased and built years ago before the sidewalks were even an issue. I haven't reviewed the HPR documents. I could guess, but it would be a guess. And I don't want to go on the record with the guess.
Right.
Okay, any additional question for the appellants?
Can I make one clarification? I believe Ms. Lamb mentioned that the timeline, the UZO was passed in December of 2020. The property was bought in July of 2021. So the UZO ordinance was there at the time of the purchase. Just, thank you.
Certainly. I was referring to the sidewalk ordinance. Wasn't it implemented in July of '21? Or was it earlier than that? But regardless, no, agree.
Right.
It was in place, not arguing that point at all. Thank you.
Okay, so no further questions. We will close the public hearing and have a discussion. Does seem quite a bit for a residential property.
And I'd just like to say, because we had another one in this area a couple months ago that I think it's maybe a couple streets over where there were drainage ditches, and we didn't require it because it was at the end of a drainage ditch and it would mess up the flow. And so I totally have a lot of deference to the council member, and I agree with everything she said, but I'm always a little concerned when we have people work on sewage lines that are a part of a system and you piecemeal sewage, because sewage runs that entire street, and so to piecemeal something for one property, that almost seems dangerous to me for the rest of the street. So the other stuff I do think they could have seen, like you can perceive a fire hydrant, you can perceive these trees, you can perceive all of that, and I agree they can also figure out beforehand about the sewage line. But when they passed the sidewalk ordinance, I know that I believe in the sidewalk ordinance, and we're charged with, implementing it. But I guess I pointed that out to say there's precedents where drainage was an issue before because it was a ditch. We didn't require the build because it was cost prohibitive. So that was it.
Yeah, I agree. I think we've had, even in the short time that I've been here, we've had this come up on these before, and I think, I love sidewalks more than anything on the planet, but this is just, it's troubling because it's a burden, and in terms of, seeing the hardship, the existence of the, we'll call it errant stormwater infrastructure, strikes me as something that would be an existing hardship with the property that would make it difficult, but it's tough. This is a hard one.
It is difficult and I've had projects where the developers are required, and it comes later in the project. It didn't come during the due diligence phase, and the developer was required to upgrade stormwater in the public street, and so it is difficult when that does happen, but it's not unusual for that to happen. I was interested in the alternative sidewalk design that my colleague brought up, and whether or not there could be some kind of compromise that would get a sidewalk and mitigate some of these hardships and work around some of the existing NES pole or hydrant. So I was hoping that there would have been maybe a plan for that.
Well, I think it sounds like the bigger issue is even more than the sidewalks, it's the stormwater improvements, which, that's, I don't think we're able to say Metro Stormwater, they don't have to do those improvements, because I kind of wish we could sometimes, because I think they overreach their bounds a lot with that, but, that's, correct me if I'm wrong, it's not under our purview to say, to limit the bounds of a stormwater improvement, right?
That's up to stormwater.
Yeah. I would love to say, just build the sidewalk and then let stormwater figure out their part, but we can't do that, unfortunately. But
They're still wanting to pay into the event.
Correct.
So it's not like they're trying to avoid, I don't want to call it responsibility, but they're not avoiding that side of it. I would respectfully demur, using one of my fancy words, that you would know that the sewer issues may or may not have been a problem prior to acquiring the property, at least my experience in 40 some odd years of doing real estate, it's just not something you would do before you owned it. You find out after the fact and go, oops, and then figure out what to do, which is apparently is what we're doing today. So I'm not hearing anything that is, it's a harsh result if they're not successful. I think they should paint the sidewalks. I think they need to leave my trees alone. I think they need to do what they can. Even if we grant them around it, the sewer issues are still going to exist. And are they going to pick up the tab for all of it, or are we going to have it not match wherever they fix it? Then they've got to spend another year getting those people to do it. Gordian's not.
Well, and I guess this is, perhaps a question. Do you think we could perhaps reopen the public hearing for a second?
Yes.
Cool.
I like the way you did that.
I'm still very passive about these. Have you all pursued with stormwater any alternative arrangements that would permit you to put, is it your understanding that it's in effect impossible to build a sidewalk without replacing the stormwater infrastructure, or have you sort of exhausted all options to that end?
My understanding, it is impossible to build the sidewalk without the infrastructure, the stormwater improvements, to my understanding.
That's correct.
Okay.
I had a similar thought. If there was an alternative design that was pursued, would that alleviate the need for the stormwater?
We have not gone. The fact is that we have not gone to stormwater with any type of alternative sidewalk design to have them minimize the stormwater infrastructure improvement plans they would. But in my experience, I would say they don't typically do that. They say, if you put sidewalks in, this is what we want.
And well, that would be another guess, so I'm not going to say that.
We'll close the public hearing again. And we have a councilwoman would like to. We'll let the councilwoman
Since the public hearing is open, if I may, I am absolutely open to talking with the appellant in regards to an alternative sidewalk layout, in addition to potentially going in front of the stormwater committee and seeing what the city might be able to do. So with that in mind, if you want to defer, I certainly would support getting that done in the interim.
We will take that into consideration. Thank you for your comments. And the public hearing's closed again. No, actually, we usually would like to know if the appellant would be willing for deferral.
If that is the board's choice or preference, and certainly if that's what the council member, we would prefer to have an answer today. We would like to move forward with building this badly. I mean, Nashville needs homes. We need single-family homes. We'd like to go ahead and move forward. I'm concerned that given it's not a massive lot. I'm concerned that given the size of the lot and the existing structure plus the space that's remaining for the proposed structure, that there's not really a way to do an alternative sidewalk that would not trigger the same stormwater requirements. I don't know that, but just looking at the size of the lot, that would be what I would expect. So our preference would certainly be to go ahead and have an answer today. That being said, if the board prefers a deferral for us to work with the council member in stormwater, we would not stringently object to that.
I guess my comment to that is I don't see the sidewalk on the drawing, so it's hard for me personally to see where it is, whether or not maybe there's something that can be done. So that's where I'm struggling with it. So
from a technical perspective, if you look at this site plan, if you look at the northern and the western proximities of this lot, no matter what type of sidewalk plans we have, it's really that curb and gutter that's on the very outside. That's what stormwater is concerned about. Because right now, if you see that site, it's all dirt and grass and nice and not just nice graded area. But as soon as you put that curb in there, then all the rainfall on that side will shoot out like Daytona 500, and stormwater is concerned that it's going to go into the neighbor's property. So the question, if we have to work with stormwater, is I'm not sure how that curb and gutter is going to go away. But as soon, if we have to have that curb and gutter, then stormwater is going to want us to treat it somehow. And right now, the infrastructure is a mistake, and that we have to improve it if we have to put any type of curb and gutter on that property.
Thank you for your input. We'll close the public hearing again. Any more discussion?
I mean, the council lady has offered to work with them to find a solution that doesn't involve the stormwater, which seems to be the primary, that's kind of the primary hardship essentially is that, and she's offered to work with them on that. I know they want to, I understand why they want an answer sooner rather than later.
Yeah.
I'm curious other thoughts.
I'd feel more comfortable supporting it with sort of a better, we've exhausted all remedies, I think. And that said, too, I would suspect that the council member might, I would be curious if the opposition was even as stringent, if there was some diligence to determine that all remedies had not been, if the stakeholders work hard, and it becomes really clear that there is literally no other option here, then I think the board and perhaps a lot of other people would feel more comfortable, and maybe the neighbors too. I don't know. That's kind of where I am.
I agree.
I think the question is how long.
How fast? And I've got a pretty forceful council member. I bet you could probably get them in the room real quick if I had to guess.
I can be at the site tomorrow afternoon.
I think it's more, can you get the...
We can certainly be available. I'm concerned whether or not stormwater would be available.
That's sort of where I was aiming. With all due respect to the metro government, it sometimes moves at the glacial pace.
I could get Mr. Potter at the meeting tomorrow afternoon.
That's what I was hoping you were going to say.
Unless he's on vacation, but.
That is a system.
Yeah, because I'm mindful of the fact that if we vote to defer like one meeting, just so that we're not tying this thing up.
Right.
And can we put it at the beginning of our docket? Since I understand the applicants. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
I also can get the director of NDOT at the meeting tomorrow afternoon.
Why do I not have
Councilmember, I
any
want you on my
questions
side
that
and
you...
Yeah, me too.
Maybe I'm forceful with everybody.
I understand that.
Okay, so thank you very much for your input.
If you didn't realize, the look on my face was of admiration, whether you want to it.
Yeah, we are.
I'll pay you later.
We're all a bit jealous here. So we will close the public hearing again. We have had discussion. Is there any more discussion?
I think I saw an affirmative nod from the appellant to defer a meeting.
If we can go ahead and defer one meeting so we can go ahead and meet with everybody tomorrow so that we can come back in 2 weeks with an answer for you so that you can vote at that point. I think a 2-week delay would not,
adversely affect.
not too terribly.
Okay, so the applicant offered the deferral and.
I make motion we defer it.
Second.
And put it at the front of the docket.
Okay, and let's take a quick vote. All in favor of deferral, say aye. None opposed. We will defer to the next meeting.
Okay.
Oh, thinking at the beginning.
I've only got...
Next case, I guess you're staying here for the next case. Okay.
Oh, we're not moving.
Our next case is 2022-92. This is a request for permission to pay into the pedestrian contribution fund in lieu of building sidewalks along Gallatin Pike and Dozier Place for property located on a corner lot at 2823 Gallatin Pike in the MULA zoning district. Like the last case, the planning department has recommended disapproval and requested that the applicant construct sidewalks along both street frontages. So the applicant has appealed that decision by filing this variance request. Here's a photo of that zoning map, an aerial picture of this neighborhood. Here's a current photo of the site. There just happened to be like a pop-up flea market there or something the day that I drove by, and people walking their dog along the streetscape there. So you can see the sidewalk that's on the opposite side on Gallatin, and then there's the sidewalk there in front.
Can I make an observation? Joey, you never had any pictures as interesting as this.
And that's my presentation. Thank you.
And was there opposition to this one?
No, I'm kidding. I actually have a few more. Let's see. I included a contour elevation and stormwater map on here since the topography was one of the issues. And so on this map, you'll see those little yellow stars are how our GIS map notes some of the stormwater infrastructure locations. This was a photo with some information that was submitted by the applicant. Another slide submitted by the applicant in case they wanted to use that during their presentation. And this was the site plan that was submitted. And yes, do we have any? Okay, yes, we do. So the applicant will have 10 minutes to make their presentation.
Thank you, Ms. Waits. Emily Lamb, 1801 West End, here on behalf of the appellant requesting a sidewalk variance. One point of clarification, we're not asking to contribute in lieu for both frontages. Gallatin has an existing property, existing sidewalk, and we would like to upgrade and update that sidewalk. So we're only asking to contribute in lieu on the Dozier side of this lot. This property is currently the site of a commercial building that has been vacant for several years. The property was rezoned in 2013 from CS to MULA. The purpose of that rezoning was expressly to provide flexibility for future development and provide a range of housing options that would support infill development along a major corridor that was provided easy access to public transportation, which is exactly what our client is proposing to do. They're proposing to construct 14 townhomes on this property, which would meet those goals of the rezoning. As part of this process, they consulted a civil engineer, again, regarding construction of the sidewalk, and given the unique topography on the site and the, again, resulting stormwater management concerns, there would be significant infrastructure requirements on-site and off-site if we're required to construct sidewalks along Dozier. The infrastructure requirements would include moving the entire underground drain onto the Dozier Place right-of-way. This would necessitate downstream infrastructure upgrades that would not be necessary but for the sidewalk installation. Also, a tie-in to existing stormwater infrastructure on a private neighboring property, which would create issues of access and encroachment onto private property for both the water line and the drain line. And then also construction of a retaining wall on Dozier Place, which would potentially isolate the property, thus defeating the purpose of the rezoning to allow for housing, better flexibility in housing for the neighborhood. But more importantly, if we could go back a couple of slides to the one that we submitted that showed there's a 35-foot stormwater easement that is more than half the property, and stormwater has given us. Yes, thank you. That stormwater easement is 35 feet across the property, and stormwater has advised us that they will not allow us to build a retaining wall in their easement. So again, we have one department's regulations are making strict compliance with the sidewalk ordinance impossible. I think all the traits that we've discussed show the significant hardship on this property is contemplated under state and local law, specifically with relative to the extraordinary circumstances or unique circumstances of this property. We're asking for a very middle ground variance request where we want to upgrade one side fully and we would like to contribute just on the other side. And again, with the significant off-site improvements, there are exaction concerns here from stormwater's requirements. There are no other existing sidewalks on Dozier, so again, creating a sidewalk to nowhere seems unnecessary. We would, when we're willing and requesting to contribute to the in lieu fund, which would allow the city to put stormwater, to methodically and thoughtfully put sidewalks elsewhere or wherever they see best fit to increase pedestrian mobility. So if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer those. Otherwise, I'd like to reserve my time for rebuttal.
So if you're moving, sorry. Stormwater would require you to move that water line into the street right of way, is that right? So then they're still wanting to keep their drainage easement of 35 feet, even with doing that?
That's what we've been told, that we would not be permitted to put a retaining wall within that 35-foot easement.
Do you need the retaining wall?
Yes. That's what our engineer has advised us, yes.
It's been vacant so long.
It was a vacant commercial building.
It's a chicken restaurant.
I couldn't tell whether it was a...
It's been vacant for several
Mrs.
years.
Winters?
No,
No,
it's not
Mrs.
chicken.
Winters was down the street. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh, you're right. Sorry.
I never saw the island. I thought perhaps...
The hot stuff was down the street. You're right.
No, that's been, I mean, listen, sadly for y'all, I grew up over here.
I mean, I'm beginning to think you live in your car and you drive by.
Listen,
You grew up everywhere.
No. Listen, you have to remember, Edwin Street is in between Gallatin Road and Dickerson. It's not far to get, if you got to get to fast food, you got to go to Gallatin.
It was not a gas station or anything like that.
Not to my knowledge. It's been vacant for several years.
Well, I understand, but if they're tanks and they were there in the 50s, I know that's before your time, Emily, but still.
It was.
Yeah.
Can't you tell?
Not all of us up here, okay? Cut some slack. But if you're going to be removing things, that was...
I can't speak with any authority on that.
And I don't know if I'm, sorry.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, I don't know if I'm developing a reputation for facilitating intergovernmental, departmental discussions or something here, but have there been discussions regarding compliance waivers with Metro Water and Stormwater on these issues?
We emailed them or contacted them, I guess by email a couple of weeks ago, asking about the ability to construct the retaining wall, and they responded and said no, and we had not had a chance to engage further beyond that, beyond being told that no, we could not do that, and that the improvements would be required. So we haven't gone to their stormwater management or waiver committee.
We haven't asked for anything alternative, if that's what
Yeah. And then maybe I'm just trying to say, comply with our rules, not theirs. But I guess
it's what they're saying.
Well, right. So and that's the sort of the fundamental issue I think that it appears to me is the case here. Has the council member been consulted on this?
I reached out to the council member last week by email. I have not heard back. I have a copy of the email if y'all would like it to be in the record. But I sent him the documents. I said, this is what we're asking. We would request, happy to talk to you, would love to have your support, and I have not heard back.
You're wanting intergovernmental cooperation and work.
What a concept.
I mean, that's almost wanting government to be efficient.
A question. I think I see some, I guess I'm going to call it off-street parking on site plan in our packet that shows maybe 4 parking spots along Dozier. I just wanted to see if that was...
What you're seeing on the site plan, Miss, is just a drawn up, in this case, the sidewalk and the curb and gutters as you would see them. Which we didn't show on the little BZA, but on the site plan itself, it does. We want to show you the curb and the grass strip and the curb and gutter. That's
Not that one. I do see that one. There's another site plan that has, it looks like 4 spaces, parking spaces.
Oh, that's really just a placement because we need to stay out of that 35-foot easement. There's a standing 35-foot easement on that side of the street that we're just kind of showing that nothing's getting built over there.
So you do not intend to build 4 parking spots along Dozier on your property? I wish I could show you what I have, but I'm not able to.
Is it this plan?
Yes.
That's currently a concept. Today's meeting, as far as dictating whether if we need to move this line off the property, is going to dictate the site plan, because our decision today is going to drive whether if that easement's going to have to move or we have to observe it.
I understand, but this concept plan shows 4 parking spots. Is that still a concept?
Yes. Still concept.
To that point.
And also to mention, the parking spaces will also be available in each one of the units as well.
My colleague had a question.
You just mentioned each one of those units, but based on the plan you have, you're not showing units within units 10, 9, 11, and 12, which maybe in this scheme, you're providing those parking spots on the street?
Well, the code requirement, it was to meet the 1.5 parking spaces per structure, I believe. So,
right. So in order to get that count, you have to have that on-street parking.
No, it's inside. It's on the first level. You pull into into the garage. You can't.
It's just not shown.
It's a bird eye view. So the first floor is your parking garage.
Right, and you're showing those pull-in units, those garage units, for all of the units on that plan, with the exception of 9, 10, 11, and 12. Is that just a graphical mistake?
I'm sorry, 9, 10, 11, and 12. What about those?
You're not showing the pull-in garage unit space. Is that just a graphical mistake?
Well, no, you would pull in.
Do those have pull-in garages?
Yes, all of them has pull-in garages. You would drive in from the 20-foot Dozier. You take a right into the alley, and you'll pull into those 9 units through that 24 to 21 foot. Again, this is all just concepts. We have to pass fire marshal in order for us to get this access approved.
But the plan have garages.
But the plan, yes. But the plan is up for all 14 units to have first floor underneath the units parking spaces, garages.
So any additional questions of the appellant before we call forward the opposition? A rebuttal time afterwards. Thanks.
Hello, I'm Sarah Ramsden, and I live at 1008B Dozier Place. I'm here today because I'm against Peros Group receiving a variance on the sidewalk requirement. Dozier Place is a very busy cut-through street with people trying to avoid stopping at the light at Gallatin Pike and Trinity Lane in both directions. The property is across the street from a busy car wash that does not have sidewalks. With the car wash traffic, cut-through traffic, and increased residential traffic, I request that the builder be required to build sidewalks on the entire length of Dozier Place property. If the builder can use Dozier Place as the entrance to their property at 2823 Gallatin Pike, where they would build the 14 units, they should also be able to construct the complete sidewalk on the Dozier Place side at this busy intersection. As Dozier Place starts to redevelop, it's my hope that a sidewalk on the Dozier Street access of 2823 Gallatin Pike is only the beginning of a sidewalk on this busy cut-through street. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Just stay there 1 second. I'll see if there's any questions for you. Does the board have any questions? Okay, no, thank you for staying.
Thank you. Just again, pointing out there are no other sidewalks for the length of Dozier, so we're effectively building a sidewalk to nowhere here. And not only that, but we have demonstrated the hardship on the property that's tied to the land that is, well, that's tied to the property unique to the, you've got the topography unique to this property that is requiring significant stormwater improvements. Again, relative to the extraordinary and exceptional situation that or condition of a piece of property that both state and local law contemplate. We think we've met that legal hardship to show our basis for a variance request. More than willing to update the Gallatin sidewalk, just requesting to contribute in lieu.
Okay.
Just clarification part, you're still wanting to pay the money in to the in lieu?
Correct.
And I appreciate you clarifying that, because the planning report did reference that it was an in lieu request on both frontages, but then I also saw from the letter that your firm submitted that it wasn't a request like that for Gallatin.
I've been where you are. It's an easy mistake to make.
So if this 35-foot easement, if you move the storm drain into the right-of-way and this 35-foot easement was not there, would you be more amenable to building sidewalks on Dozier Place?
Well, that we would at least be allowed to build the retaining wall. But that doesn't resolve the issue of tying into an existing stormwater line on private property, or the moving it down, the downstream off-site infrastructure improvement. So again, arguably an exaction. We haven't researched it certainly, but it's something to consider. So that would resolve one of the three significant stormwater requirements. I don't think that would resolve the sidewalk issue here.
And sir, Logan, I have received confirmation that says that if we do decide that we want to move the sewer line off the 35-foot easement, we're required to upgrade every single system downstream of that line as well, because we touched it.
Same thing as the last hearing.
Can you get Mr. Potter to go over there with you guys after the other place?
Where did the council member go?
That's not the same councilman, but she's got the NDOS phone number. I can. That would be helpful. But yes. So if we touch stormwater's lines, their message to developers is, you touch our line, you upgrade every single thing downstream of that because you touched it.
Thanks. Any other questions before we close?
Is there, may I ask? Okay.
Go ahead.
Is there any sidewalks on Dozier? And I'm looking behind you.
There's no sidewalks on Dozier block face, not on the entire street.
No, we're down, and I'm asking her now. Okay. So I'm not trying to, yes ma'am, if you, real loud.
It's my understanding from speaking with
Her understanding from speaking with neighbors.
Yeah, in the record.
My understanding that with speaking with neighbors, at one point there was some plans to build a sidewalk on Dozier because we did have a resident who was disabled, and I don't know what happened to that, but I can tell you a lot of people walk on the street, I walk on it, and people fly through, and at that intersection, it just concerns me that with no sidewalk there and grass on the other side, it's just going to be more dangerous as people continue to use it as a cut-through.
And there are no other sidewalks on Dozier.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. I'm just baffled with
I mean, so on the, I will, for the applicant, can I ask, go ahead, Mr. New, and I'll ask my question.
So did you know about, was the easement recorded when you purchased the property?
Yes.
Okay.
It is recorded.
And one other question. Has there been any indication of whether the stormwater infrastructure was faulty in its installation at the time that Metro installed it.
I don't have any data on whether if that pipe is undersized or anything like that.
I think part of the issue is that whether it was done incorrectly or not, just in general, Nashville's stormwater infrastructure is old. So as
Nobody will fight you on that.
So now developers are being, if they do, as Keith said, if developers touch stormwater, they're being required to upgrade them, which, if there's a nexus, if it's reasonable, that's all well and good. But the extensive nature of the requirements for this particular property, as well as the fact that some of them would be on neighboring private property, I think, are not reasonable.
So on the last case, you guys had an estimate. Do you guys have an estimate of how much it would be on this one?
We don't, because we haven't, quite frankly, we haven't paid the engineering fees. It's a lot of money to just get the study done so that we can potentially move the easement line.
I will say, so there's a coffee bar it's called Allergy, and the applicant is right. I am someone who cuts through there to go to that coffee shop down the alley. I'm just
Are you sure you don't live in your car?
It's not that far from my house. No, but I say that to say, and you can't tell from the picture, but the sidewalks in this area are really bad, and there's a lot of people who walk now in these neighborhoods because there's a lot of Airbnbs on East Trinity, which is just over. And so, or on the other one, I was really with you guys, and I'm not saying that I don't see a hardship here, and I do appreciate that you're going to upgrade that sidewalk on Gallatin because it's really just not even a real sidewalk. But I know you guys haven't invested the money yet, but I do think I've heard on this board for the last 3 years that sidewalks have to start somewhere, right? Somebody has to start them. I don't know if this is an instance where somebody has to start them, but
I don't think it is.
But I do think the opposition, she did bring up a really good point because this area does have a lot of foot traffic and people do cut through to avoid the light, and the Taco Bell, people cutting across 3 lanes of traffic to get to the Taco Bell and the cookout. So I just have a question. I know you guys haven't invested the money. Last time it was easier for me to go with you because you guys had a number on how much it would cost you to mess with that line. And maybe you don't have that yet, but I was just wondering an estimate. And if you don't have it, that's fine.
We don't, and I think our biggest concern, or one of the bigger concerns, there are several concerns here, but again, with that easement here, we wouldn't be able, stormwater regulations will not allow us to meet. If we install the sidewalk, we're going to trigger stormwater restrictions that we can't meet because they won't let us in their easement. So, we haven't gotten as far as determining costs because there have been other hurdles that we've faced.
Okay, thank you.
And so stormwater is telling you all the way down the street, Dodson? You're going to have to fix it?
Oh, no. So that's.
How far down do you have?
That was just little. So can we scroll back to the other page? Oh, that one, the previous one. Yeah. Okay. So you can tell it's not on this case it's a little bit of a different challenge. It's not that we are trying to we haven't identified stormwater made a mistake or not. I don't have the data to tell you that. What I can tell you is that if we put sidewalks on Dozer, then we have to move that 24-inch reinforced concrete pipe off our property, but we have to come and take up the neighbor's property too, and we have to go study every single catch basin on the private properties of all the properties down Dozer as well. And that's what we're asking to do, is to say if you guys want to do this further study, we're going to have to move the line, upsize all those drain lines that's on private properties.
And again, we're requesting to contribute in lieu so that the city can take this money and install sidewalks comprehensively rather than filling in holes here and there as they, see fit.
Okay, any further questions?
There's a car wash on the other corner?
There is a car wash. It's very busy on.
It's a really, really nice car wash.
Yeah.
Is what it looks like.
And there's a cluster of bars.
There is Fox
on the
Bar.
other side. Yeah.
Yep.
So
I wouldn't know that. I'm just.
So I, on the record, I frequent Fox Bar quite a bit, and a lot of people park right there, kind of at that knuckle. So within that alley. So even, especially late in the evening, maybe at night, there are quite a few people walking, all in that area.
Yeah.
There are a lot of people walking in the area, a lot of cars parked over there. You know, it's a accident really waiting to happen.
Glad you went somewhere with that commentary.
Well, and I think
Economy going.
the ingress and egress out of Mr. Car Wash, which I will frequent from time to time, is also a little, it's right there at the intersection, and there's not a Gallatin Road exit, and it's all right there on Dozier, which is, in a sense, I'm with Ms. Davis on not necessarily quite being there, but at the same time, I'm also, I can't help but the easement issue is maybe pushing me a little more the other way. I don't know.
I'm going to close the public hearing
go for it.
first, unless there's more questions. Okay, so now we'll close it, and now keep going.
Yeah, this is, and I don't know if this is going to be one where where a meeting between Stormwater and others might be helpful, but it doesn't sound like it's going to necessarily be the case as it was with the other one. So I don't know if the 2 weeks is. This
is project in general is on a different scale than the other project we looked at. And I think that when you look at developing a piece of property like this, there's a reason it hasn't been redeveloped already, probably. And B, there's some expectation there's some infrastructure on that property that's going to, that's just part of it. It's just, there's going to be some things like that. Now, is this crazy, a crazy amount? I think we can talk about that, but I do want to kind of counter the idea that it's a sidewalk to nowhere, because this is where a sidewalk should start. It should. You have a multimodal corridor along Gallatin Pike, and it's the very start of that into a residential neighborhood. This is exactly where we need sidewalks in Nashville. So I think it's very much a place that needs a sidewalk. But I understand that there are infrastructure upgrades needing to do that. But that's part of the cost of development, in my opinion, on this one, considering the scale of the project.
But are they paying in? So are they?
Yeah, but the pay-in is nothing compared to,
we don't set those fees.
Right. And there is an appeals process with stormwater, too, that...
That'll keep Emily busy for a long time.
That's my thoughts in a nutshell. I'm curious to hear others' thoughts.
So I agree with Mr. Newton, because the first case was very different to me, because it's in a residential area. It's one house. That's all, that area is sort of a weird area where there's some drainage issues, there's some sidewalks. It's just weird. Whereas this one, as Mr. Cole pointed out, someone who I cut through Dozier. I don't speed, but I cut through to get to the alley to get to the coffee shop. And there are a lot of people who walk now in this area. And like I said, I don't know if this is, I do think that because it's connected to Gallatin, there's more of an argument that there should be a sidewalk that it leads to the frontage of their property, and there's going to be townhomes right there too. So those people will have guests. There should be something, but I would like a little bit. I understood Mrs. Lamb's argument, because it was a good argument that they didn't even get to that point because they would have to move the water line. So I understood that, and those are bad cards to be dealt, because I think that that's a good argument. But I also agree, because of the scale of the project and because of where it's located off of a corridor, and because you have 3 board members telling you that there's a lot of pedestrians and opposition who sat here for 3 hours to tell us that too. I think that that's worth something. So this one's hard for me, because I understand they made a really good argument, but it's kind of hard. So
You've got a mix and match of private property rights. If you devil, and I'm looking now at the screen, and it all emanates because of an easement in a position that they're taking. You need housing in Davidson County desperately. It's a balancing act,
At least you could have had a face card or two in your poker hand, because you really didn't have much. You made a whole lot out of nothing, actually. Maybe if you paid twice the amount into the fund or something, because they didn't create the problem. And to upgrade and to force a developer to upgrade everything, you're just adding an additional tax.
It's not uncommon.
I understand, but that, there comes a point in time when you're going to stifle that whole part of it.
But, I mean, Mr. Lawless, I definitely understand this, and like I said, I understood the one off of Chester. This is on Gallatin Road, and you're talking about 14 units. They're going to have to upgrade the infrastructure anyway, just because of the size of the number of units that are going up. I'm not saying that it's fair, and normally, like the ones we've had before, they're in residential neighborhoods. We're talking about 1 or 2 houses. This is 14 units.
How about we put a traffic light right there to slow you down a bit?
I don't speed through there. I take a slow left turn onto
I never expected a lawyer to admit that she sped and violated the traffic laws. She said she did. I know. I was very impressed. Why did you have to have 2 sewer things today?
I'm just playing the cards I was dealt, Mr. Wallace.
Understood. Right. I'm sorry,
Yeah, no, that's okay. And the public hearing is closed. So are there further discussion on it? And does anyone have a motion they'd like to try? Okay, that's fair enough.
I think it's Joseph's turn.
I make a motion to disapprove, and the applicant has to construct the sidewalks.
Okay, is there a second on that motion? I'll second. And discussion on the motion.
Yeah, I think it's I think that it's. I think I'll support the motion, but I still think it's an overreach by stormwater of what they're requiring them to do. I'll say that as part of it, but
okay.
Yeah.
I think it's an overreach by stormwater too, as well. Like I don't think that this is fair.
Let the record reflect that I think it's an overreach by stormwater as well.
Okay, we have a motion, a second. We had discussion.
Call the question.
We will now vote. So all in favor of the motion, raise your hand, say aye. Aye. So 5.
I'm against.
Opposition. So motion to disapprove passes 5-1.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we're on our last case on the docket. Case 2022-93 is a request for a variance from the street setback requirements for property located at 3818 Hydes Ferry Road in the RS-15 zoning district. The applicant is seeking to build at a 30-foot setback instead of the 66-foot contextual setback, which the site plan that I'm going to show you, I'm so distracted by that car horn, thank you. Which we've had car horn and a lot of mowing and this case.
You have stayed so focused.
Back to this case and the setback. The site plan that I'm going to show you does reflect the 66-foot contextual setback, and my understanding is that the applicant can obviously is substantially more familiar, but my understanding is that the building permit that was issued contemplated a 66-foot contextual setback. I'm going to get through this and ignore that car horn. And I think for some reason that it was poured at a 30-foot setback, and we will hear about that from the applicant.
Okay, so we have the applicant here, and I believe we have opposition.
Okay, thank you. So then I'm going to go through my slides. This is a photo of the area or the zoning map, so it's an RS-15 zoning district. This is an aerial view, and you'll recall that we did actually hear about the corner lot for the second time earlier. So this is the lot as it appears today. And that's a view down Hydes Ferry Road. Here's a site plan, and then, let me see. Okay, this is a site plan that shows the 66 setback line, 66-foot contextual setback. This is a contour elevation map, since that was something that was referenced in the hardship form that was submitted. And then I included a couple of slides of the plans that were just part of the building permit application, just sort of FYI. Okay, that would be the end. I thought I had, let me look at something. I thought I included architectural rendering. Okay, yep, that's what that is. I wanted to read to you too, because you all received an email from the council member for this area since we've been here, and she says, this is Councilmember Toombs for District 2. She says, my understanding is that the foundation for this project has already been laid, and its placement is not in line with what was presented to the community. If there is a hardship to the developer, I'm sympathetic to him. He has several projects in the district and has been good with communicating with the community. Neighbors do not want the character of their neighborhood changed. I yield to the expertise of the board in determining whether the request is in keeping with the character of the neighborhood. And if the applicant would wish to come forward at this time, you'll have 10 minutes to make your presentation.
Sure. Hello again, everybody. I'm Josh McDonald. Address is 3276 Hinkle Drive. So, so on this one, yeah, Hydes Ferry's been very good to me, as you guys are clearly aware. So I was coming back from out of town, and I drove by and I looked, and I was like, there's something interesting here. And long story short, when I saw, the foundation has been poured in this place. So the plan here, this is going through some interesting reiterations, so I'm building here what's going to end up being like a personal home. So I'm going to live here, since the gym is right around the way, and I could just walk to the gym. I go twice a day as it is. So I'm going to live here, and then when I found out where the foundation has been poured, and what all happened with the surveying and staking, et cetera, and looking at it, I was like, in that case, can we proceed from where we are, since the foundation's been laid? I know there were a few houses nearby where the setback actually looks to be around 30 or so, right across the street, actually. But then I've learned about, neighbor opposition, and again, trying to keep the integrity of the area. And to the council woman's, Ms. Toombs' point, I have other projects in the area. Actually, interestingly, for this one, depending on how the board feels about it, I am open to potentially moving it if I absolutely have to. I am open to that, and I guess being more in compliance with the 66-foot setback as it was originally intended to be, given that this was a mistake that was not on me, on another third party. So I am open to that if the board thinks that is the absolute best route forward.
Do you know the setbacks for the neighboring properties?
Yeah, so the property on the right side, that's just land. On the left side, I think that house is and that's where they said it, it's it's 66, 67 feet. So they were so basically for codes, making it compliant to be in line with that, which we didn't have a problem with that, to be quite frank. I mean, it's workable with the lot. It's just that this foundation was poured in the wrong spot. So that's what's just unfortunate.
Further questions?
I can't wait
So,
for this one.
you mentioned in your request here something about the rock and the utility.
Yeah, so that's another thing. So that's why. So pushing it further back, as you go further back and walking the site, I could see. Well, there's it seems like it's a pretty, like it's not a lot of soil, it's rock, so I guess you have to go and bust that back up and, I guess take everything, move it backwards. The utility lines have to then go further back, as honestly was originally intended. So that's why I'm kind of like, well, if it could just stay if it's where it is, that actually works in my, I guess, favor, to be quite frank. At the end of the day, I don't mind having a shallower front yard personally. I mean, I have to cut it or get someone to cut it. That leaves room in the back for other things potentially that could be more fun. But again, that's why my point. I'm actually open to, having to move it if it has to be done. If that makes everyone feel better.
Thank you. We will see if there are further questions. Doesn't look like there is, so we will, if you'll take your seat back again, we'll call it the opposition. Thank you. And do we have how many people in opposition? Is there anyone else in opposition that would like to come forward? Okay, one more.
Yes. Good evening, afternoon, everything gets passed. My name is Dolores Donegan, and I live at 1631 Emerald Drive. Mr. McDonald and I had a conversation, and I told him how I felt about it and how the community felt about it. A lot of us run into problems. My father built our home, and he had to bust a lot of rock. When you build a house and you say you want a ranch-style home and you want it placed at a certain distance that has been approved, then you can't be happy with what has happened. I am not for that foundation staying where it is. It's right on the street, and I have mentioned to him I was going to vote against it being where it is now. And he said, well, it'd be a lot of expense to move it. I said, but it's not your fault. You go to the person that made the mistake. So that's where you have to go. So I am totally against that foundation being where it is. And a lot of the neighbors had complaints back when he started this project about the poles and the lines to Comcast, and now we come up with this. So I wish you would take in consideration how we are feeling about this, because a lot of us have had discussions. Why is that house being built so close to the street? And that's a three-way stop sign right there. So I wish you consider what I'm saying and give it some thought. Thank you. I appreciate everything you all do. And I will be here every time something comes up on that street.
Thank you. Thank you for being with us today.
Thank you.
Anyone else, would you like to come forward, or it's okay if you don't? Okay. Yep, that's fine. Thank you. Anyone else, or, okay.
I have a question for the applicant. If
The applicant or the opposition?
Sorry, for the applicant.
Okay, yeah, we'll call him back forward.
Yeah. Is there any likelihood of building a second residence on this lot?
No, I don't think that would go over well. I don't think that would go over well. That's the simplest answer.
Not under this zoning.
Okay, that's what Okay. That's fine. That's all. That was my question.
Okay. Thanks. Did you have a rebuttal?
No, basically everything I said earlier, just whatever you guys deem right. I know at the end of the day, it's going to be in a super nice house and it'll look right and I'll have good landscaping. So either way, I think either way, the community and I guess myself as a member of the community, everyone wins. So yeah, just whatever you guys decide, I'm okay with, basically.
Okay, thanks. We'll see if there's any other questions for you before we close the public hearing. Doesn't look like there are, so we'll close the public hearing and discuss.
So I think the applicant has a really good disposition about this. Like, I really appreciate his willingness to kind of be flexible. A lot of people aren't. Like, I think he should be commended for that. I also thank the opposition for coming. I don't see a hardship, though. I feel super sympathetic for him because I don't think he did anything wrong, and I feel really bad for him. But we typically like to keep homes in contextual lines, and this one's so far off from the line of the neighboring property. Without more of a hardship other than someone made a mistake, I think it should be moved, even though I don't feel good about saying that, and I do feel sympathetic to the applicant. And like I said, I appreciate everybody being here today. So I'm not willing to support it, but I'm listening to the expertise of everyone else.
I think Ms. Donegan had it pretty well correct in her assessment of it. If it was my house or my project, I would be having the person who installed it in the wrong place move it for me.
Right.
So.
I'm really sorry the public hearing's closed, but thank you.
Yeah, I'm with y'all on that one. I asked the question about, if this is going to be one of those situations where, if we're going to start to see if the zoning is going to start to allow more density in this area, and then, are we just going to get to a point where we're going to end up having 2 houses built on this lot? Is it? But at the same time, based on the current zoning, and purely speculative, I'm not in favor of it.
Well, then I make a motion that we deny the variance request because there hasn't been an adequate hardship shown.
Second.
Okay, motion
Seconded.
Discussion. Okay, voting. All in favor, say aye. Raise your hand. Aye. And none are opposed. So it's denied 6-0. That's it. We're adjourned.
Okay, yep, meeting adjourned. Thank you.
This has been a service of the Metro Nashville Network. If you would like to see this presentation again, or for more information on this and other programs, visit nashville.gov.